What is up, everybody out there in the stream? My name is Lawrence here at Mighty Comics Collectibles, but more importantly, we're on the podcast. This is the Mighty Rewind podcast today, live. This is my first live one, and we got no agenda today outside of the fact I want to talk about the comic book and collectible market, okay? And that involves everything, not just comics. We can talk about toys, we could talk about video games, and I'm hoping we get a guest on a little later who's going to talk about cards a little bit too. So he promised to come on. We'll see if he holds his word, if he can. No pressure, my friend. But regardless, we're here on a Saturday night and we're just talking everything collectible. So what is going on? The first thing and foremost on the stream right now, I did put the link if you guys want to join me tonight. I would like somebody new to come on here and chat with me. I know I've had a few guests in the past who always jump on, and I love you guys, but tonight is for new faces or maybe some big faces. If anybody out there is, hanging out, have a bigger YouTube channel, want to talk comic book market, I'm here for you guys tonight. But I want some fresh faces and fresh opinions, okay? So let me say hello to the few that are in the chat. We got 6 people as of right now, but hopefully this thing picks up. But I know a lot of things are going on tonight. It's a beautiful night here on the East Coast, and I'm sure on the West Coast as well. Elite Comics 11 is having a massive sale right now with a brand new vendor who's been on, I think, once or twice before. So make sure if you're not watching this, you're checking them out, okay? But let me say hello to the few people that are here. First and foremost, my boy Patel with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it. He said, friends don't let friends overpay for second appearances. That's right. One of my mottos from way back in the day. Why was ASM 1 once same price as AF 15? And why do you feel it's overpriced for what it is? Let's roast. Thank you, my friend. So before I get into that and answering that question and saying hello to everybody else, I'm actually going to do I guess what they call a start a goal. I've never done this before, but I'm going to start a goal here tonight. So uh, if I get to 10 super chats in total or $100, we're going to give away something tonight. I already have it right next to me. It's nothing huge, but again, if we're going to get 10 super chats and we already have one, we're going to do what I always do and give this away live tonight where I pick a number and we go from there. So keep that in the back of your head. So Patel, you started us off tonight. So thank you for that. So I wanted to mention that to everyone out there. We got one so far. So we need 9 more or a total of $95 as well, but no pressure. This is just, a way of me saying thank you for, chatting me tonight. And of course, making it a little fun for everybody out there. So let me answer Patel's question first. So a lot of people dog on ASM 1, and I'm not one of those people. I own an ASM 1, but it's not a first appearance of a major character. It's the first Spider-Man in his own title. It is a first appearance, obviously, of the Chameleon and Aunt May and Uncle Ben. And I'm giving you the quotations because there was a prequel to Aunt May and Uncle Ben in, I believe, an older Strange Tales book, like a test for those two characters. So either way, it's considered by many their first appearance. Regardless, it's not a true first appearance of Spider-Man, number 1 in that run. So to me, it's not a non-important book, but AF-15 is such an important book in our hobby. Not only that, I consider it a classic cover, but the first appearance of, to me, in my opinion, is the greatest superhero of all time. I think most of us collectors are men, and growing up as a child, Peter Parker being, a teenager when we were introduced to him is such an amazing thing that book has gone into a place where it's the most popular book by far in comics. So at one point, maybe ASM 1 and AF 15 were that same price, but I think people finally woke up. And it happened around like COVID time. When COVID type happened, that book really shot up. I'm talking about like a 1.5 was like, or maybe like a 2.0 was like $10,000 to $12,000. And all of a sudden that book shot up. It's pulled back a little bit, but it's still holding most of its gains, especially in that lower range from a 0.5 to like a 3.0. And that's really where I play. So it's held most of its gains. I think when we get to the higher grades, of course, it has pulled back a little bit more. But I hope that answers your question, Patel. To me, that is the number 1 book to own in all of comics if you can. And I understand it's not attainable for a lot out there. But thank you again for the super chat, my friend. I want to say hello to Hector. What is going on, my friend? A new name, Derek Strom. What's going on, brother? I appreciate the love. Really do. Nicholas Ramel. I do recognize that name. What's up? Phil Ailing. What's going on, my friend? Haven't seen you in a while. So AF-15, Hector, it is not rare. Okay, I'm going to say that there's just over 4,000 copies on the CGC census. But when we narrowed that book down to blue label only, and now I'll even go yellow label or signed by Stan, because that to me is an important thing. it really narrows it down. Okay, so I'm not an advocate of buying restored books in the Silver Age. If you get a restored book in the Golden Age and it's a really big book and a really scarce book, I can understand why we want to play in that area. But with 4,000 copies total on the census, I believe out there, even a .5 blue label is better than getting a restored book, unless there's like a small amount of color touch and you want to remove it, stuff like that. But I'll always advocate for blue. And I have experience in this area because I have owned restored books in the past. And I'm just giving you my opinion on that. But it's not rare, but it's important. I will say this, for however many blue label books there are of AF-15, I can guarantee you'll find at least 10 times the amount of buyers for those books because it's such an incredibly popular book. So Patel says, ASM 1 was the first appearance of J. Jonah Jameson, Chameleon, and Peter Palmer. I don't know who Peter Palmer is, but that's not Peter Parker, obviously. But either way, I get what you mean. It's definitely a first appearance, but it's not a major first appearance. That's what I meant to say. I want to say hello to Tacoma Geek. What's going on? AF-15, not most of the ASMs. AF-15, nor most of the ASMs are rare. They're not really rare. In fact, I'll go as far as to say no Silver Age books are rare, okay? When we get into super high grade, then they become rare. But outside of that, I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen, but I will say when we're talking about Spider-Man, they will always find a buyer for those books. Okay, that if they're blue label, if they're not restored and they're complete, you'll always find a buyer for those books. To me, that's guaranteed money. Patel with a $2 chat, man. I appreciate that. What grades are you recommending for ASM 129 as a buy? So for me personally, all Bronze Age books are, I want to own them in very fine range or higher, only because the amount of copies out there are just crazy. Now, when we get to certain books like Hulk 181, where it gets like really expensive and you really are a big fan of Wolverine, I'm just going to tell you, go ahead and buy the book. But the higher the grade, the better off you are. I think, honestly, the most I'm drawing from my memory on the videos that I do that a Hulk 181 in like the 7.0 range, 7.5 range, that has got the most copies on the CGC census. Somebody check that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case, that 7.0, 7.5 has the most copies on the census. But higher grade, the better when we're talking about Bronze Age comics. To me, I own an 8.5 signed by John Romita Sr. So I've owned everything from like a 5.0 and higher on that book. And I've had like 20 copies in my lifetime. So I just love the cover. I love the book by my favorite artist, of course. So if you want to own the book, just get the book. But with bronze, I say higher the better. Wow, a lot of questions tonight. Hector says, is Hulk 1 rarer than AF-15? 100% it is. Hold on. Last time I checked, I want to say is under 3,000 Hulk 1s on the census. Now, this has been a while since I checked the census, but I'm pretty confident in that number. Under 3,000 on the census, blue label. I think total is under 3,000, but regardless, definitely more rare because if you guys don't know, when Hulk first came out, they had the 1 through 6 issues, and then they stopped for a while, and then they came back and started again at 102. So that 1 through 6 really wasn't doing well for Marvel, so they stopped, going on with the title. They discontinued it, and then they ended up bringing it back, and that's where it took off. So a lot of people kind of ditched those books, and they were like throwaways for a lot of people. So that's why I think it's more rare, but definitely has less copies on the census. Tacoma Geek says, between ASM 50 or 129, which would you buy? Best grade for the buck. So for me, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go silver over bronze. That's just me. There are a lot of copies out there of ASM 50. I call that book the trifecta, and ASM 129 is right behind it because that is a classic cover in my opinion as well. I don't think you can go wrong either way, but I'm always a preferential buyer of silver over bronze. So I would go with ASM 50. That to me is more of a classic cover considered by a lot of collectors out there who are not just Spider-Man fans. So, but either way, I don't think you can go wrong. Right now, I think 129 has been super hot. So definitely, I would say ASM 50 first. So there we go. Nicholas says Hulk 1 is definitely rare, as I was saying. Luis Mendoza, what's going on, my friend? Yo, what is up? Man, Patel is crushing you guys right now. I may just have to give him this freaking giveaway. Another $5 super chat. ASM 1 has 2 stories in it. In the second story, Stanley smoked some shit and forgot Spider-Man's name and wrote it as Peter Palmer for the entire story. That is right. I totally forgot about that. What are you going to do? Stanley, you can't mock the guy. He's the GOAT. To me, the godfather of comics, him and Jack Kirby. So tremendous. Either way, and I have done this, I would own both books. AF-15, I would go after that book first. And if you're a Spidey lover, I would then get an ASM 1. The way I did it was I got a 0.5. ASM one. It's a blue label. It's missing the back cover. So that's why CGC gave it a blue label. And I'm okay with that. The book looks fantastic. It is one of the few incomplete books in my collection, but because I have my AF-15, that is the most important book in my collection. So I was okay doing that. And that's how I collect. And people are different. Everybody's different. They can decide what they want, what they like, what they're comfortable with. So I'm always an advocate of that. Nicholas says, I'd buy SM-129. Punisher is way cooler. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong. I just think definitely there are more copies of 129 in the census. It's a great cover. It's a first appearance, double first appearance if you consider the Jackal as well. But ASM 50 to me that's one of my all-time favorite books. It's a classic cover. It's an iconic storyline. That to me is the bigger issue because the way that storyline plays out is so iconic that I just think it's a must own for every Spider-Man fan. Like, that's where like we find out who Peter Parker really is. That's the whole story behind Spider-Man, why he does what he does. And that's why I think it's so important. And that's really why I want to own it, as the fact that it's a Silver Age over Bronze Age. Sales Boy Comics. What's going on, my friend? Thank you for joining me tonight. Patel Philippe with another $2. Your money today. Tech 31 1.0 or Batman 1 1.0, both Universal. That's an easy one for me because I've owned both. And honestly, believe it or not, they were both the same grade. 6.0 restored CBCS. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The Tech was a 5.0. The Tech was a 5.0. The Batman one was a 6.0. Regardless, I'm going Tech 31 the entire way. It's in my opinion, it's the greatest cover of all time in all of comics. It's bar none. There's a lot of great covers out there. In fact, somebody recommended when I put out a feeler the other day on my Hot 10 breakdown about what videos I'd like to see, and they wanted me to break down my top 10 covers from each age. So golden, silver, bronze. So that's what I'm actually working on right now. We're going to drop a golden age top 10 covers of all time. Obviously, Detective Comics number 31 is on it. So definitely Tech 31 for me. I just love that cover. An iconic book. Not an important storyline, to be honest. And obviously, Batman 1 is the first appearance of the Joker, and who later goes on to become the Cat, and obviously Batman 1 in itself. But to me, Tech 31, a lot less copies on the census as well. Batman 1 is like over 300, where Tech 31 is still like at 102, something around those lines. My man Patel with another $2. Oh, that's the one you just sent. I apologize. Phil Ailing, what do the different labels mean? I'm assuming you mean like green being incomplete, purple meaning restored, blue means complete, no restoration, no anything wrong with the book. Although the way CGC has been over the past year and a half or so, where they're hiding some of the comments, you really have to go to the notes to find if something's, like a little piece out on the margin somewhere or something like that. So make sure you guys, if you are buying slabs, and make sure you check the notes to see what's actually going on with these books, okay? Because they decided, I think a couple of years back, they're going to keep some of the notes off the front of the label. So make sure you're doing that. That's the most important thing. But really, green is incomplete. Way back in the day, they would give green labels out for when artists signed the book or somebody wrote their name on a book, stuff like that. But I always thought that was ridiculous. And now of course, they have the witness signature so that is no longer in play. Obviously, the purple is restored, and the blue, it means it's complete, and it's got nothing going on, really, for the most part. Helmuth Presents. What's going on, my friend? Thanks for joining me tonight. Laura Palmer's brother? Is Spidey connected to the Twin Peaks universe? There you go. Very funny, my man. Nicholas Rommel with another super chat. Thank you so much, Nicholas. I really appreciate that, guys. All you guys who drop super chats. Again, we're giving this away if we get to 10. I think we got chat rate. I don't know what we got right now yet. I'll check on it as we go. We either have to get to 10 or $100 total, and we're giving this sucker away. Again, Nicholas, I appreciate it. Hulk 181 is Wolvie's first appearance. Let's go. 100%. It's his first full, obviously 180, but 181 is the money book. That's what I call. Patel brought up earlier in the chat that one of my mottos is don't overpay for second appearances. My other motto is this: always buy the money book. Right? The money book is 181. I'm not saying you shouldn't own 180 because you should have both if you're a Wolverine fan, but if they had to choose one, it's always the money book. Manu, what is going on, my man? So everybody get ready, because next week, the Mighty Rewind podcast special guest is this man right here. And I got to tell you, we had one of the best conversations I've had so far on this podcast about his origin, about how he became who he is in his life, and how, how he acts every day to day, not only with comics, but with everything he, pursues in his entirety. So it was such a great conversation. Thank you again, Manu, for coming on. But wait till you guys listen to this thing next week. It is really awesome. So Nicholas Ramel says, hell yeah. So another newcomer, John Ban, what's going on? Thank you for joining the chat tonight. Greetings from the Windy City. How's everyone doing today? We're doing great, my friend. Thank you for joining us tonight. Luis Mendoza, what is going on, my friend? Hector says, PSA has the right idea with no colored labels for Restored. I got to tell you, man, PSA has been really catching my eye lately with what they're doing. They just recently put out a post on IG. If you guys are on IG, I'm sure you saw it if you're following PSA Comics. But if you're not on IG, I got to tell you right now, you got to get on IG, because not only is there a lot of information out there, there's obviously a space to buy books as well, but also you're missing out on tremendous community opportunity. And that's what I'm going to call it. I should probably tag that and put it on a shirt. Community opportunity. How's that? Great. But regardless, they put out a thing saying how much they appreciated all the submissions. Not that they're overwhelmed right now, but the amount of people who are sending books in to be graded right now, they are so incredibly happy with the response that they've gotten from the community that they're kind of updating their, their time frame to send books back to people. They've kind of restored. They started like bumping them off a little later and later, and now it seems like they're getting them back in line. So make sure you're paying attention to PSA. The label is growing on me. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I like the uniformity of everything. You just got to make sure you're reading the entire label and the notes. That is what I'm going to tell you guys right now. But do your due diligence. That's one of the things I always tell everybody. Derek Strom says, what do you see Giants S X-Men 1 trending value-wise in the next 5 to 10 years? So obviously, guys, I don't have a crystal ball, but I always tell you, if you watch my videos, that is the #1 Bronze Age book I want to own. It's got a lot of things going for it, but I will say this. If you're an X-Men fan, if you can't get X-Men 1, that's the book I want to own. And it's got all the major X-Men characters outside of Professor X, Magneto, the ones that were introduced originally in X-Men 1, but all the main characters we know and love for the X-Men, that's the book. But if you can get a higher grade or one that really presents with great colors, I think you're going to do very well over the next 10 years. I don't want to minimize it to 5 because I think you're still in that tricky area where the market is going to be kind of flat. But 10 years down the line, I think if you have a really nice looking copy, I think you're going to do okay with the new X-Men coming to the MCU. And that's only a small role. Books don't really fluctuate too much on movie news now. But what I will say is this: the condition and the presentation of your comics mean everything. Okay, so if you have a nice presented copy, like I said before, and the colors are great, I think you're going to do very well. Percentage wise, I have no idea. I'm not, if I had a crystal ball, I got to tell you, man, I probably have 1 million subscribers, but I don't. But I love you guys regardless. Cowbell TV. I love that. Cheers, my man. Thank you for showing up tonight and supporting the channel and the podcast. Kenneth Bird, another old school follower of the channel. What's going on, Kenneth? So Nicholas says, Giant says X-Men will stay steady, but if bad X-Men movie comes out, it'll drop. I think the MCU is going to be fine. I don't think you're going to get these Avengers type level movies where you have these big stars anymore. Once they reboot everything, you're going to get, standard quality Marvel movies. And I'll leave it at that. Outside of Spider-Man, it's always, and X-Men, I think the movies were big too, because they have a lot of fans and they'll go see anything. Even the movie is shit, people are going to go to the theaters and watch it. That's just my opinion. Salesboy Comics, thank you so much, brother, for the super chat. $5. I do conservation work on comic books. Check me out. I'm sort of funny. Lawrence is my bro. That's right. He does do conservation work. So make guys check him out if you do want your books conserved, clean, stuff like that. Check Salesboy Comics out. And like I said, if you're not on Instagram, I don't know where you guys been. Like the amount of stuff and people that I've met over the years on Instagram far out, exceeds YouTube. Okay. So if you're not on Instagram, I suggest everybody start an Instagram profile. Just put, your favorite comic as your profile pic. Doesn't have to be anything earth shattering. All right. But either way, man, I got to tell you that it's totally, totally worth it. So I think we finally almost caught up. Okay. Which is remarkable. A lot of questions. Can't wait to see who will be the new X-Men characters. Me neither. I can't wait to see who they finally cast as the new Captain America, new Tony Stark. I want to see who they get with the new Wolverine. many people think that Hugh Jackman is going to, be in this role forever. I don't think that's going to happen, man. There's no way that that is going to happen. I can guarantee it right now. They're definitely going to replace him at some point. So, well, it looks like we're all caught up in the chat, which is great. And while I completely go on and talk about the things I want to talk about tonight, I always ask you guys whatever questions you have, just please drop them in the chat. I will get to it eventually. So, and again, we are going to get a guest at some point. And if anybody does want to jump on, fresh faces, I'd love to hear. If you want to talk about anything in the comic book market, anything like that, books you're looking for, you're more than welcome to do so. The beginning of this chat has the pinned link, and it's in the description as well. So you're more than welcome to jump on. But I want to talk about market conditions right now. Okay, so it's funny because, oh, excuse me, I haven't had a drink in a month, so I'm gonna sip this and enjoy it nice and easy. But the one thing I'm gonna say, where my camera goes in and out, there you go, is that I'm getting conflicting reports from people. So you guys know me, I'm always on live sales. I'm always on peeking in on Elite Comics 11 and other live sales that are going on, consignment pages. I've covered a lot of, you know, market reporting when we're talking about sales prices and stuff like that. I do 2 lists a week, the Hot 10 breakdown on Thursday, some of the other books and not so well-known books on Tuesdays. So I know a lot of price data. And what I'm seeing right now is a lot of mixed messages. At the end of last year, I made a statement on Swaggle channel saying that new comic books were going to dominate this year. And so far, I've been right, where DC has really kind of stepped up with new books and new stories with their absolute stuff. And it's been really great for the people who love new comics. There's been a lot of great covers for non-reader issues, just cover alone stuff that's been popping out, not only at cons, but at stores, store exclusive stuff like that. People have been gobbling up. So that's the next thing. But vintage, I thought would start to take over again towards the end of this year. And I think it's starting to creep up a little bit, but I think sales have definitely slowed on live streams, on consignment pages. But that's not what I got people telling me when they went to San Diego Comic-Con. They said when they were at the con that the dealers were saying that the books, the wall books especially, were moving and that people were buying books. Terrificon got the same stuff too. The people were actually buying the wall books. Not too much haggle going on. Now, again, I only talked to a few people here and there, but that's the vibe that I got from those 2 cons. And I don't know if it's because Marvel didn't really have a presence this year at San Diego Comic-Con. If that's the reason why. And I know a couple of years during COVID when they didn't have those announcements, stuff like that, the dealers said they also did very well. So I don't know if that's them, coming down from the halls and saying, let me go look for some comics, stuff like that. But regardless, I'm getting mixed messages right now. And usually when that happens, well, and I didn't compare everything to stocks because I pay attention to the market there as well too. But when things kind of bottom, and I said this a couple of years ago, things fluctuate where they go up, things will go up, they come back down, things will go up, they come back down. And that's like a basing. And that's what happens when things start to turn around. So in stocks, you have like a 3 or 5 wave correction, and then you can go up 3 to 5 waves. So I think we're in that range right now where we're bottoming out still, and you're going to get some books that are jumping, some people jumping in the market, and then maybe we'll get a little bit of a pullback again, and then we'll kind of be, I don't want to say off to the races. That's not the right words because it's not 2020 anymore, 2021, but we're going to get some steady increases over the next 20 years. And I say it's like just how it was before, COVID took over. So, but that's not for every book there is. Okay. I want to make that perfectly clear right now. And we're talking about major keys, rare books, especially. I think a lot of people, we saw like some DC Golden Age stuff really start to pop off after we got that big crash. And now all of a sudden they're coming back down to earth and they really kind of have gotten hit and hard. And people want to know, like, why is Marvel kind of stayed the course? I'm talking Marvel Comics. It's because I think a lot more people are fans of Marvel than they are of DC. And it's not big. That doesn't mean I don't love DC. I'm just telling you the truth. Like outside of Batman, like there are other characters like Green Lantern. I don't want to say Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Superman to an extent. Like they're beloved characters. When we talk about Marvel, we're talking about Spider-Man, Captain America. I don't want to say Iron Man because I don't think he was a highly followed character before that movie came out, but other characters were definitely more followed than some of these DC characters outside of Batman. So I think you're going to see Marvel stabilize a little quicker and take off a little quicker before DC does. But that's just my opinion. But right now, the other thing that I'm seeing, and the one thing that's kind of holding us back and making us fluctuate, is that a lot of the people buying books, and I want somebody to attest to this, maybe in the comments, is that I think a lot of the people buying books right now are buying books to flip. Like they're not buying them because they want them for their personal collection. They're looking to get the best deal possible to try to sell them, make a profit, and then maybe put that money into either something else or buy other books and do the same thing. And I'm constantly seeing people either buy books on Instagram and then go to Whatnot and try to sell them for a profit, go to eBay, try to sell them for a profit, stuff like that. So I don't think that's really a great thing for the comic book market, in my opinion. I just think that, you know, we need buyers of people who want to hold things in a collection. The one thing I will say is that I always see my LCS posting like photos from the shop and they're mobbed. They're absolutely mobbed, which makes me happy. I mean, it not just comics, don't get me wrong. They sell a million other things like Pokemon, toys, vintage, stuff you're not going to see too often, video games. They sell everything. So there's always a ton of people in the shop, kids as well, which makes me happy because you need kids in this hobby. Okay. But I want to hear from you right now. What are you seeing? Does anybody go on these live streams just like I do? And obviously, I host for Elite once in a while, not a lot, but I see what people are buying. I see people are offering, and not just other that. Like I said, I'm on other live streams, always looking to see if there's something out there that I might be interested, or what things are selling for, how people are reacting to sales, how people are making offers, because that's all goes into my input when I do all these videos. So I want to hear from everybody out there. I'm going to catch up on the chats, and I want everybody to give me their answer down below. And quickly before that, we're going to do a giveaway if we can get to 10 super chats or $100. We're well on our way here. I'm trying to figure out how many super chats that we have, but I will figure. Oh, wait, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right now we're at 6. 4 more or $100, and we're going to get to there and give this away to somebody today. Let me catch up. Where was I going to say? So Sales Boy says, that's very true, IG. I just have a couple of comic books on there. I don't like Instagram, but it's a way for people that can get a hold of me. 100%. I think if you don't have an IG account and you're a comic book fan, you're doing yourself a disservice. I don't care how old you are. If you're 60 something years old and you enjoy comics, I'm telling you, have someone help you set up an IG if you can't do it yourself, because the conversations I have with people are worth its weight in gold on IG. I have a lot more conversations there than I do on YouTube, which is sad, but you're always, by the way, can contact me. My email address is in the description of every video. But outside of that, IG is very easy because I could always just DM you back when I'm on my phone. Adria or Zona would make a great Wonder Woman. I don't know who that is. So I hate to say it. I saw that they were talking about Anna de Armas. Dude, I don't like that at all. She's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But like, that's not what I'm looking for in a Wonder Woman. I'm looking for someone who's big. I'm looking for someone who's beautiful, great body, strong. Like I don't see her as that. Like I see her as petite. Her face, I get why people say, they want her as Wonder Woman, but I don't see it. I know Gal Gadot is a pretty good choice because she's enormous, like tall wise. I don't think she fit the role perfectly, but I thought she pulled off a decent Wonder Woman. Brandon Metro, what is going on, my friend? Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, so Helmut says X-Men 94 is a sleeper book. So I know this book has been on my hot 10, and I said I want Giant Size X-Men 1 first. For me, it's always going to be X-Men 1, Giant Size X-Men 1, then X-Men 94. If you're an X-Men fan, I want to own all three. But if you're not a huge X-Men fan, in that order, there's no question in my mind. I also think that it's got the least favorable cover out of the three as well. Angry Straight White Male. Just tuned in. Sorry if you covered this, but Deadpool Batman was ass. Green Arrow and Daredevil was the only story worth my time. Zebwall sucks. Zadarki keeps going Canadian socialist on us. I have not covered any of that stuff, bud. So I have not seen the Deadpool Batman, but I got to tell you, it's a good thing you brought this up because I wanted to say something. I am not a huge crossover guy. I have never been a huge crossover guy. And I don't see the combo of Deadpool and Batman working at all. I mean, outside of some comedy here or there, like to me, it's just the two characters I do not want to see together. I would like to see a Batman Daredevil. I think that would be a better combo than Deadpool Batman. But regardless, I am not a crossover guy at all. I have a smudge on my glasses. Tremendous name, my friend. Absolutely tremendous. I think there's a lot more people that don't read comics, but like comic heroes than comic book readers. That being said, DC claps Marvel when it comes to comics, but it doesn't really show en masse. So I think that's a perfectly welcome statement. I think you're right on that, especially me. Like I grew up reading a lot of Batman. And I mean, that's really all I read outside of Hulk and a little bit of Punisher, Batman, and Spider-Man. And I honestly, I obviously I grew up reading Amazing, but I also read a lot of Web of Spider-Man. They were so simplistic, some of the stories in that web. I actually enjoyed those a lot. So the regular Batman title and Spider-Man, I grew up reading those comics. And I think a lot of people around my age, it's the same thing. But nowadays, 100% DC owns the roost when it comes to stories, especially the new books. Hector says soon being able to grade with PSA, then immediately vault and sell on eBay without even receiving comic will be a flipping game changer. Yeah, they have that right now with cards, which we're going to get a card guest, I believe, in a little bit, who also collects a lot of other things like comics and stuff like that. So he's going to join us for a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. That's the one thing that CGC does not have. And I got to be honest with you, I think there's been a lot of damage that CGC has done to their reputation. I still think a lot they're going to get a ton of business. Don't get me wrong, but like when you have something new, and that's what PSE is right now to comics, it's new. People want to try it out. People want to see what it's all about. And I think, excuse me, that they're going to get a lot of comics sent their way right now. And people are going to test the service, see how they, see how they do. But also the influx of tens on modern books is going to be a huge thing. If that continues to be the trend for modern books, that they're going to give tens over 9.8s, you're going to see a lot of CGC 9.8s get cracked out and sent over to PSA. I'm not saying that's going to happen, like that they're going to be give out 10s. Maybe at some point they'll slow it down. But if a book is a 10, it should be graded as 10. If a book is a 9.8, it should be graded as a 9.8. So with that said, the fact that CGC has not put out many 10s or many 9.9s since its inception in the early 2000s, this bode well for PSA, considering that they've only been around for what, a couple of months, and they've already put on a bunch that have been, publicized on Instagram and YouTube and everywhere else. So they've kind of hit the ground running a little bit. So I want to see what's going to happen in the near future. And I think CGC really needs to do something and step up their game, whether it be fixing their case, doing something else. Right now, I think the big thing is that CGC is in bed with the auction houses. So every time you get books, being sent up for auction, there's CGC graded books. I have seen a few raw books that have been showing up on Heritage right now, which is shocking. There actually is someone called it some attention to me. The first appearance of the Riddler is on Heritage auctions right now as a raw copy, which actually shocked me because I swear that they would have made someone grade that book in order to sell it. But what do I know? So I just, everything right now is an interesting time for comics, but I also think it's a great time for comics. Hector says for cards, PSA is already getting offers to people as soon as cards are graded. I know. I'm not a huge card guy, like outside of Garbage Pail Kids. I do have a few sports cards here and there. But the one thing I'm going to say about the card market, and I know very little, so I'm not going to be the person to say I know everything about cards. With new cards, it's manufactured rarity. So let's keep that in mind, right? It's not like you're going out in a 52 mantle graded every day. Like that's unheard of. So all these rare cards are manufactured. These new cards, I should say, are manufactured rarity. One of something. Signed cards here, double signed here. Kobe and LeBron on one card. The stuff that we saw, or Michael Jordan on whoever on another card. It's manufactured rarity, and I think eventually that's going to catch up to that market. And that's just my opinion. Another super, Nicholas Rommel. What's going on, my friend? $5 again. We're inching close. We're almost there, guys. The secondary market is definitely keeping the industry alive. That's where they're doing so many variant covers for flipping. Dude, if you go to I'm going to New York Comic Con, and that's a topic I was going to bring up later in the conversation. I'll be there Friday only, and I've gone for 4 straight years, and the people that are in line for these things are it's insanity to me. These con exclusives that drop in price literally a couple of months after they come out. It is keeping the industry alive, but I'll always come back to the fact, and I thank Swagglehouse for bringing this up on our live stream the one day about the people who are afraid to kind of dip their toe in the vintage market. They start with these type of books. So I'm hoping that these people eventually kind of come on over to our space. When I say our space, I mean me and the people who collect vintage comics and back issues and stuff like that, because I do think that will be a good thing for the hobby, because I feel like there's a lot of younger people who collect these variant and con exclusive stuff like that, and they're getting their foot in the door in our industry. So I do think eventually it's going to be a good thing. And thank you, Nicholas, for the super chat, my friend. Mercury, what's going on, my friend? Everyone I know and online were swearing by Deadpool and Batman, but wasn't impressed when I read it. Yeah, man. So Angry Straight White Male said the same thing, that he hated it. basically. And then he went off about, some of the writers and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. That's not really a combo I want to see. I said that before. But again, for $5 or whatever it is, and I don't know the cover price for these things 'cause I didn't pick it up. But the blind bags and these crossovers right now, it's just driving the new markets outside of the covers. So, and I'm not saying for $5 you shouldn't pick it up and check it out because you probably should, right? Just to see what it's all about. Salesboy says, love that name. ASWM. Oh, angry straight white male. Hello, I got you. I got you. That was a tough one to read. He got me. This is going to be a tough listen to anybody who's listening to the podcast right now on Apple Podcasts or Podbean or Spotify because I'm answering questions, but it's a live stream. So I wrote that in the feed. So here we go. Here's a question. Oh, it disappeared on me. Thoughts on ASM 238? Seems like a great buy right now. Hobgoblin is pretty cool. I've always loved that cover. When I was a kid, it's one of my favorite books growing up that I actually got to see, up on the wall at a local shop that I had near me. So one of my favorite covers of all time. I would say this: if you're going to get it in the highest grade possible. Yes, it's definitely a book I want to buy. I've owned many copies over my lifetime. I do have a nice raw copy right now. So I agree with you. The book I definitely want to own, especially if you're a Spidey fan. I don't think we're ever going to see Hobgoblin in the MCU, though, unfortunately. But that's a character I really would love to see. I don't want to see Green Goblin anymore. We saw him already twice, even though it's the same character. Let's see Ned turn into the Hobgoblin. I think it'd be really cool. Hector says PSA can only grow comics market. They have millions of card followers and huge marketing money. 100%. They're a huge company. Again, let's just hope they don't make any mistakes. It's going to cost them any market share. That's what I'm saying. Right now, they're new, so people are trying them out. They're getting a lot of influx of books, but mistakes are going to kill companies no matter what. I think you saw how many mistakes CGC had, over the past couple of years, and you add the price increases onto it. It's really catching up to them. I mean, we haven't seen poor Matt Nelson anywhere. Hasn't gone on any shows. I know he's been doing shows like Comic-Cons and stuff like that. He goes there, but I would love to have him on, just talk about him because I feel bad for the guy. I really do, because I do think he's a really great guy. There you go. Buy ASM 238 because it's a first, but don't expect it to jump in value. I agree. No Copper Age books are really going to go screaming to the moon because there's just so many copies out there. No question. So we're caught up. So I have a guest backstage who I am going to bring in. You have seen him on the podcast before, believe it or not. And he said he wanted to drop by for a little bit. So say hello to the sports card dad. This is Dustin. There he is. What's going on, my friend?
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm glad they have the time to jump on here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a weird encounter with Labubus today I was going to share with you. But yeah, go ahead, man.
No, go for it. Start off with the story. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is so crazy. So I've just heard about Labubus just through social media and stuff. I've never really looked into it. I've heard that some of them have sold for crazy amounts, and it reminds me of Beanie Babies in the 90s.
Yep.
That's what I think of exactly. And so I took my daughter just turned 13, my youngest daughter. And so it was her birthday weekend. And she's like, Dad, can you take me and my friends to the mall? The actual shopping mall that we used to go to. I never go to malls anymore. So I went to our local mall, and there was literally 3 or 4 different stores that were all specialty stores. And they were selling, whether it was Pokemon or Labubu or Japanese related collectible type stuff. It was crazy stuff I'd never heard of before. A lot of anime, there was all sorts of, but I was just shocked to see there was 3 or 4 different stores, and these places were packed. And I was asking a lady, and there was people in line for Labubus, and I was trying to understand. I'm like, what is it? I actually asked this lady in line. I was like, hey, I collect various things, but I'm not into Labubus. Can you just tell me what is it that energizes you about Labubus, or whatever? And she probably thought I was nuts, but she was like, well, they come in. So one thing that's kind of fun is they come in these like mystery boxes. So you don't exactly know, you kind of have an idea of what you might get, but you never know exactly what you're going to get. And it reminded me, like on the sports card side, we have repacks, comic books. Now they've got mystery, well, it's not a new thing, but the mystery box, repack type thing. It's big in collectibles, but I was like, damn it, that's what it is right there. It's literally just a, like you don't know exactly what you're going to get, the mystery of it, a little bit of a gamble in there.
Gamble, 100%.
And people are hooked. So I was like, damn, it's unbelievable.
I was going to ask you or anybody in the community, what what is the fascination with this thing? But you just answered it. It's the fact that you're gambling. That's 100% it. Because I'm looking at these stupid things and I'm like, what is the draw? I don't get it. And you brought up Beanie Babies, and I don't have a funny story, but I do have someone I used to work with years and years ago. Who used to collect these things, and she had every goddamn thing under the world, and she couldn't get rid of them after like the whole thing crashed. That's what it reminds me of. It's like you end up buying these things, and I hate to say this because I know maybe some people are going to kill me, but I feel like pops are the same thing. Like at one point,
Yeah.
the pops were super hot, and now I feel like you can get them for $5 in a blow-up bin anywhere. And maybe there's a few here or there of something that has really gone up, but other than that, I feel like they're all like throwaway stuff, giveaways, and stuff like that.
I don't know if Labubu does this, but kind of similar to sports cards, if they have like one of one dolls, or if they have like, hey, we only made 10 of these or 5 of these, kind of like what they do in trading cards. Pokemon hasn't even pulled this lever yet, which absolutely is mind-boggling to me, given the insane demand for Pokemon cards. They don't even have serial numbered cards yet. I mean, like, think that if they pulled that lever and you had one of ones that were out there somewhere, it would, like, the whole world would probably catch on fire, with
I,
people trying to find it.
I said that before you came on about like a manufactured scarcity with regular sports cards, and you're
Yep.
100% right. The Pokemon right now, and maybe someone else in the chat can attest to this as well, besides Dustin, because I try to go to my LCS and I'm looking around, I'm looking at everything because I'm into everything. But like the people looking at Pokemon stuff are like, it's insane because they're just huddled around the case and it's just like so much anticipation over this. And I don't get it because I'm not a Pokemon guy. Do you get it all? I know you do have some Pokemon, right?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where my youngest son is into Pokemon. I have no nostalgia from it. Like, you and I are a similar age. So I don't have it. Like, it was late 90s. I was already in high school, college, I mean, it wasn't part of my nostalgia background, but I've just been buying sealed Pokemon over the last year because it just performs really well. If you're just talking about buying, if I'm looking at the trading card space, if I buy sealed stuff and I just do nothing with it, just throw it in a closet, forget about it. Pokemon stuff has done really well for me. Today I bought $1,500 more of like boxes of Pokemon stuff, and just kind of like picking and choosing which sets I want to add in. But I don't have the need. It's not like a sports card release where I'm like, man, I wish I could open this. Like, I don't want to open any of it, so it's just going to sit in there and it's just going to age. But it
I
ages like fine wine. It's crazy. I mean, it
I
ages really well.
I don't know if it was you put out the data that I saw about like if you look at the S&P over a certain time frame and you look at Pokemon, like the Pokemon is far ahead of the S&P, like crazy amount of percentage if you bought Pokemon at some point and you still have it today. So like I just don't know if that buzz is that bubble ever going to burst, because it's been like Pokemon has been around forever.
So the thing that threw me off with Pokemon cards, why I didn't get in until a year ago, is I heard that they reprint sets. And in sports cards, I was thinking like, well, if they reprint sets whenever they want, then it's like, oh man, like that's, like I don't want to deal with that. Because what if
Yeah.
like, oh, cool, like this is supposedly a limited set, and then 5 years later they reprint it. What I didn't understand is they're on a schedule, so they do reprint for sure based on demand, but they're on a certain schedule and they move on to new sets. So once they kind of move on to new sets, they can't go back and reprint all these things. They can't
Mhm.
just go back and print sets from 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. And so they leave it all behind. And that's kind of part of, I guess, that's part of the game of Pokemon is they have an era, where they release, let's say it's 15 sets in the era, but you don't necessarily know which ones are going to be the real hot ones that people are going to like, or which ones are going to have the big chases. So it's a little bit of a guessing game there, but like Evolving Skies is a huge one, going back to the Sword and Shield era. And it wasn't necessarily on everybody's radar. Like going back a few years, it was a $300 box, and now it's a $2,500 box, booster box. So it's like, but it wasn't necessarily when it came out like, ooh, this is going to be a huge release. So that's kind of the fun part of Pokemon, I think, is you never really know. But there are a lot of sealed collectors. The big question mark for me, I think, is just, with a lot of people holding sealed, what happens if everyone, goes to dump? And I think that there is kind of a thought of like, oh, well, the market will just eat that up. There's enough demand to where if the big whales go to dump all their positions, like the Rudy at Alpha Investments, if he's like, hey, I'm putting this out into the market. And I don't know, but nobody really knows that, because I don't know if we've really seen like a Rudy size, whale put all that product out. And so what they're doing is they're just kind of selling it off in pieces. You know, a lot of the big whales that have a lot of Pokemon position, they're just kind of selling it off in pieces or just holding. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it's a fun little side project that I've got with all the other with everything else, comic books and graded games and cards, and you know, you and me, we're on the 80s 90s nostalgia kick.
So I was just going to say, so obviously, Derek, thank you for dropping his YouTube link for the Sports Card Dad. I think everybody probably watches that channel already if you're into sports cards and stuff like that. But tell them about your new channel revolving around 80s, 90s nostalgia.
Yeah, so Lawrence, actually, your kind of push into more. Actually, you released a couple of Masters of the Universe videos on your channel, and I was like, damn, man, that was a really good video. And it got me thinking, like, my big passion is just 80s, 90s nostalgia. Now, is it a competitive market with a lot of more channels than we have in sports cards? Yes. And there's a lot of folks that put out really good content on that front. But I was also just thinking about, look, like you and I, we're content creators. What's the content that you love making and you can make forever? And with sports cards, I feel like I've got that. With comic books and collectibles, you probably feel like you have it too. But I know, like, 80s, 90s nostalgia stuff, it's endless what you can make videos on. You know, I mean, it's really endless. There's a ton of different IP. You could pick a handful of IP and make different videos on all those different IP. But 80s, 90s presents kind of all these different options for us. And so, yeah, I had a second channel, Collectibles Dad, that I turned into back to the 80s, 90s. And I've done 5 or 6 videos on it so far. And it's like history of Sonic the Hedgehog, history of Ghostbusters. I'm just getting my feet wet, just kind of playing around with it. But we'll see, you know, over time, you know, I'll adjust, and, you know, there'll be higher production and different effects and things like that. But yeah, that's been really fun to kickstart.
It is, man. I gotta say, when you're first starting on this stuff, it's hard. But like once like you touched on it before when you said when you start doing content about things that you enjoy, it's a little bit easier. Even if the views are started like really slow, it's a little bit easier because you're talking about the things that you really enjoy. So it is definitely a lot more fun than talking about something that you don't. I'll leave it at that. But while I have you here, you know, I wanted to talk on toys a little bit, and I know you collect some vintage toys like I do, but and I wanted to ask you this: do you have any like AFA graded toys or like stuff like that? Because I wanted somebody's opinion on buying graded toys over non-graded toys, and I'm talking about carded, obviously.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about it from like, hey, I want to buy and hold this, you know, like for, I don't want to say necessarily investment, but like speculating on it, like, because obviously, you know, if you're going to buy carded stuff, like if we're talking about Masters of the Universe and you're buying AFA graded stuff, you're going to pay a premium. If you buy it, you know, I do have actually right here, I do have a few AFA graded type stuff, but like this is one that I got on eBay. Since you're a He-Man guy, this is not AFA graded. I got it for about $500 going back a couple of years ago. It's not the first print because it's actually, I thought that it was until I did more research, but it says the original right here, which basically it was basically false advertising. It's not the original. I thought it was the original. It's the second print because it's got, if you look, it's got 3/6. Yeah, it's the 12 back, but the first print is the 8 back. Yeah. You know, so it's got 8 characters instead of 12. That's where, but honestly, I was just like, usually when these things pop up, they do sell for, you know, a premium. I was like, you know what, for $400 or $500, that would be really awesome to have it. Even though it's not in perfect condition, it's got a price tag of $4.97 on it, which some people don't like that. I actually love that. I love it too. I love it when it's like a Toys R Us price tag for $4. I'm like, damn, that's cool. Yeah. You know, so I don't have tons of AFA graded toys, but I look at them all the time. I bid on them. I work with one of my channel sponsors over at Sports Card Dad is Hakes Auctions. Hakes is a great auction house for that stuff. They're crushing. They've got the Jeff Jacob collection with all the Star Wars stuff that he's selling. If you go to Hakes Auctions has a YouTube channel, and they've got a really nicely produced, just like showing all of his stuff because he's selling off, I think, like $6 or $7 million of Star Wars graded Star Wars stuff. It's incredible. I love that stuff, but you know, like between cards, comics, toys, you know, all the things, I can't do everything.
My question was though, like, yeah, I'm a little bit of a toy collector. I always have been, but like AFA has been around forever. So if you don't know, like I've submitted stuff talking like 20 years ago, like around that time frame, but like the cost to buy and grade an AFA graded action figure is through the roof as compared to buying one that's not. So I got to ask anybody out there and I was hoping you kind of did this, but obviously I don't think you do. But like, who would spend that kind of money on buying something that's graded when you have to pay such a high premium to do so? Like you said, you bought a He-Man for $500 vintage card. All right, it's not the first, not an 8-back, but it's still a 12-back that's probably released in either 1982 or 1983, which is over 40 years ago. It's still on card. So to pay $500 for that, I paid, I think $1,100 for the one I got as an 8-back from Mexico. If you buy an 8-back He-Man that's graded, it's like $10,000 to $20,000 depending on condition. So like the amount of money that these things go up, I always wanted to find out from somebody why. What's the premise of spending that kind of money on something? Is it just that number in the corner to see like the condition, or is it what is it? I don't know the draw.
I think it's similar to other collectibles where it's just resale value. You know, if you have it graded through AFA, then it's no different than if you have a CGC 9.4 compared to an ungraded, whatever, giant size X-Men. You know, you can go haggle with somebody on an ungraded comic, or you can just have it, like in that grade, then you can say, okay, it's a $4,000 to $5,000 book or whatever. I think it's similar with toys, but to be honest with you, I'm not deep enough into the toy market, as far as buying and selling them as a dealer. I haven't talked to enough dealers to know. I think that would be a great interview, is probably like a dealer that's been buying and selling graded and ungraded toys to really understand it, because I'm not 100% sure. For me, it's more of just, I looked into grading. I actually have some ungraded Ninja Turtle stuff, like from 1988, that first series. And then I looked at this was actually though pandemic times. I looked at the price point, I looked at the turnaround times, and I was like, all right, I'm not in a huge hurry to send these off. And they're still sitting here, 4 years later.
It's like a year to grade stuff, by the way, for toys. Yeah. It's like they're going to hang on to stuff for a year. But like the disparity between comics, like if we're talking about a 9.4 Giant Size X-Men 1 raw and 9.4 graded, the disparity is not that much off, whereas it is on toys a lot. That's my main concern. But maybe someone who listens to this after the fact, contact me and like tell me what the draw is of buying a graded action figure for the price that they're going for as compared to buying one that's not graded, outside of the fact I want to own the highest graded of a certain thing, right? But I someone in the chat, before I let you make your point, wants to comment on your Pokemon comment about people think the world would end with World War III. Reality, world ends when Pokemon introduces one of one rarities, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they haven't even had to pull that lever yet, which is insane. I mean, and maybe they never will, but sports cards pulled that lever a long time ago, and they're still, kind of, going off of that. I think you're right, though. Going back to the toy thing, the comic book comparison maybe isn't the better one. Maybe trading cards is a better one, because with trading cards, it literally is you're sitting there and you're with a dealer and it's like, it's a 9. No, it's a 10. No, it's an 8. No, it's a 7. There's so much variance in those prices. And also there's a lot of variance in what I might see versus the dealer, but you're right. With comic books, I feel like there's more consensus where people are comfortable buying an ungraded comic, just visually looking at it and saying like, that's a nice book. I'll pay 9.0 price for that, but it's not the same way in cards. And I don't know if it is in toys either.
All right. So we have a question and another $5 super chat. We're almost there, by the way. We're almost at the, let me just count this be quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at 8. So we got 2 more to go, and we're doing a giveaway. So Patel says if AF-15 had less than 100 copies on the census, and thank you again for the $5 super chat, would it be worth more than Action 1 or Tech 27? Where would it sit amongst the 3 and why? Holy shit. That's like a huge what if question. I want to let you handle this first. What do you think?
I really like this one. And I think that it would definitely be on par with the other two. I do. I think the tough, well, I guess you could say like, oh, well, one is older than the other. Okay. But if there's less than 100 copies, well, the problem is, I guess, is the AF-15 is from the 60s. So there might be 100 copies on census, but maybe there's more out there that are not necessarily, graded, versus like the Action 1, which just naturally has less copies. But let's say they're all from the same time period. Are we just comparing characters? Are we just comparing Batman versus Superman versus Spider-Man? Because if we're just comparing characters, and I think they're among the same price. But if we're looking at like what's graded versus what's not graded, there's obviously less Action 1s and there are way less than there are AF-15s in the world.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I can even answer that because I think Super Spider-Man is the most popular character, and I think Batman is a really, really close second. But if there were only like, let's say, equal amounts of Tech 27 and Action 1 and AF-15, I gotta imagine that AF-15 would be the more sought after book because it's all about rarity. I think that's why Action 1 and Tech 27 have these in crazy price disparities as compared to AF-15. But that is a great question, man. Wow.
I think the copy you have, if I remember correctly, you have an AF-15 that's signed by Stan Lee. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, to me, and that's kind of like when with trading cards, it's like this. You see this with trading cards where it's like, oh, it's a 86 Fleer Michael Jordan card, but it's signed by Michael Jordan. And then that'll be kind of a huge differentiator. That's a massive differentiator on the card. It's very similar to me with like an AF-15. That's like to me, that's the ultimate grail is Stan Lee signed copy of that. That's incredible.
I off the top of my head, I don't know how many there are signed by Stan Lee. If somebody has CGC sent us up, they can look. But to me, that was like always like a copy that I think that like if I'm gonna get a Stan Lee signed book, it's got to be that one or maybe Hulk one, and I have both. But like that's like his ultimate creation, both of those characters. So I thought like if I was gonna do it, and plus that book looks so good with that yellow label. I've always loved it, so that's why I went ahead and did it. But regardless, that's a great question, my man. So again, I got to apologize because the last time I did a fucking live stream, my screen got all out of whack and it's doing it again. And I have a feeling it's the freaking mouse. And of course, I don't have the charger on me, but regardless, I'm going to read the next question. So I can't take it off the screen for some reason. Oh, wait, there we go. There we go. All right. So 990 cents. Oh shit, Dustin, what up? He says, I wonder what percentage of comic books are being bought by other sellers seeing a good deal, and what percentage by actual collectors. Any guesses? I brought this up at the beginning of the stream. Is that there's a lot of people buying comics right now, but I think I don't want to say the majority because I don't have a crystal ball to see who's buying what. But the people I see, I know for a fact are going on other platforms and trying to sell books, and I don't think that necessarily that is a great thing for the hobby. What about you? I know you haven't been actively buying comics, right?
I got one from Hakes. I got a Marvel Spotlight 5 a couple months ago on Hakes. So for me, basically where I'm at with comics, and Manu actually has a book that is I don't know if he still has it, but he's got a wicked copy of, I believe it's Spawn 1, but it's like a green variant cover that is like impossible to find. It's stuff like that that really kind of gets me going because you see a lot of the same key books, but I just want to own kind of Silver Age keys and certain Golden Age stuff. I really enjoy if it's a cool early Superman book, or something, or I'll look for Silver Age keys to add to my collection. Uh-oh. Did I lose Lawrence, or am I out of the stream? Okay. Well, if I'm still in the stream, then I'll just keep talking. Yeah. So for me, I've just been buying just Silver Age stuff as it pops up.
There we go.
Was I out of the stream?
No, it was me because I'm messing around with this stupid thing, but go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I do add them, but am I like, am I insanely focused on very specific books? Not necessarily, but I want to own copies of Amazing Spider-Man 1, X-Men 1. Those are on the docket. You mentioned AF-15. That's always kind of out there. I need to consolidate some things and buy an AF-15, but it's possible. Could do it. So yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily waiting for like a comic book crash. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But I'm just I'm being choosy and I'm just taking my time with stuff, but I do pick up things. I got that Marvel Spotlight 5. That was one that was on the list for a long time. So I do add them on occasion.
So this is interesting. It's not a question, but it's a point. He says, Cantanamo says, I understand buying a graded Golden Age comic book to ensure there is no restoration, but doing it for a Bronze Age and after is a bit silly to me. I know you're a big proponent of grading because I've heard you talk about it on your channel, especially for cards. And even before that, on when your secondary channel was about comics and stuff like that, you talked about how grading was here to stay and it was important. And you think eventually down the line, most of the key issues are going to be graded copies. What do you think of this comment about like it's silly to buy I know what he means by a comic book that has a lot of copies out there, buying it graded because there's not too much of a point to it considering you're not looking for restoration on those type of books?
Yeah, I guess it just depends if there's enough consumer confidence in the ungraded type stuff. I just think that I'm kind of jaded from sports cards where there's been all sorts of shenanigans over the last decade, like 50, 100 years with sports cards. I mean, some of the earliest graded cards were trimmed, and then
Yeah.
that's part of their lore. The first PSA graded card was a Honus Wagner that was trimmed, and that's part of the
I
lore.
just saw that. I just saw that the other day on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. The first created card they realized was a trim card. And then if they showed another one, which is like a 1.0 that was like half chewed away.
And what's funny is that's added to the lore of that card. People are paying a premium almost because it is the first PSA graded card, even though, it was trimmed. So, I think that, and just going back, you were there too, Lawrence, like card shops in the, 80s where, it's near mint. No, it's mint. No, it's fair. No, it's, so I don't want to argue with people. I would much rather, and especially now that we're more of a place where we're buying online a lot. Like, look, if I'm buying online a lot, would I buy as much stuff if there was no grading? If I'm just buying online?
Yeah.
No, there's no way. I mean, I just wouldn't, because I wouldn't have the confidence. I guess I don't trust people enough, but
I don't blame you. Don't blame me
but
whatsoever.
but for comics, maybe there just is enough trust there, or maybe, but to his comment, if it's golden age, if it's silver age, maybe you don't mess around with that, because you're spending more money, or it's an important book, key, or whatever. But if you're going bronze age or newer, you're just trying to add a copy to your collection. Maybe you don't need to pay a premium for a graded copy if you're just trying to add it to your collection. It also just depends too what your goal is with that book. Are you trying to, flip it? Are you trying to sell it? Or are you just collecting comic books?
So it's funny because when you talk about cards and you look at a card that's a 9 as compared to a 10, I can't tell by the naked eye. You can't see shit. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'm not just like a novice when we're talking about cards, but there is no way I personally could tell the difference between a 9 and a 10. No way.
Yeah. I mean, I've graded brand new cards that are less than a year old that I got a PSA 4, PSA 5 on. And you know what happens? So a lot of times I'll look at it, it looks great. And then I see a scan, a high resolution scan, and there's a crease on the damn thing. And it's literally like pack pulled and it's messed up. And I might have sent it directly to grading from eBay or whatever, like it's not as if it was handled a bunch. It just came out of production that way. So yeah, you never really know.
Oh, here's number 9 super chat. So we're keeping count. All right. Nicholas Rahman, thank you again for the super chat. Underrated artist and book. Mine, by the way, is Weapon X. Do you have an underrated artist or book you want to mention, or do you want me to take this one?
I feel like I'm kind of a normie, with comic book collecting / investing, to where I'm not deep enough to make, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not deep enough into the thick of it where I'm reading a lot of stuff, where I'm, seeing enough books. I'm kind of more of like, the classics. I'm collecting history, with the older stuff. So like whether it's modern or even like more obscure books that aren't necessarily newer books, I haven't dug into it. So it's probably for you.
All right, so to me, underrated artist, I'm going to give you a modern artist that I absolutely love is Tyler Kirkham. I think his art is, to me, reminds me of 1980s art, like updated art, like for now, but reminds me of the art that was done in the 1980s. I absolutely love him as an artist, and as a modern artist, one of the few modern books that I actually buy is a lot of stuff that he does. As far as a run, the original Deadpool run, I read through it. I used to own the entire run. I thought that run was fantastic. So to me, that first Deadpool run, I thought was great. And if you have a chance to go ahead and read through that, I thought it was fantastic. Thank you for the question and the super chat, Nicholas. I appreciate that. So Derek says, same idea in cards. Many sales are to repackers instead of other collectors. I don't know what he means by that. He's saying other people. A lot of the sales are going to other people who are resellers and repackers and stuff like that instead of collectors. You think that's the case?
Well, one question I guess I have for you, I've seen some of this, like when I go to Heroes Con and when I've gone to some other comic book related Galaxy Con and stuff, mystery boxes. No, I'm not, Derek. Lawrence is the boss here, man. I guess what I would wonder is, have you seen, is the gambling part of the comic book buying, environment, is that more of a thing now than, is that like a big part of the hobby? Because to me, when I watch your channel and when I watch other channels, I don't necessarily see it. I don't necessarily hear you, Swaggle, some of these guys talking about like comic book repacks or mystery boxes are taking over. I just don't hear that. But I'm not deep into it like you guys are. Whereas on the trading card side, it certainly is a big part of our world.
I think now I'm not a big modern guy, so I don't really delve into that type of content. But they're like Brian from Beyond Wednesdays. He's a very astute into new comics. He knows about all the blind bags that are coming out. He knows all about the whatnot bags that are coming out. That blind stuff is starting to really get hot now. It's starting to take over the comic space, especially the new books. And now we have that new website. I keep forgetting the name of the website, but it's basically buying. They have a Hulk 181 and it's a mystery pack and you're buying you're paying $200 for a mystery and then you're finding out what the book is. And if you want it, they'll send it to you. If not, they'll rebuy it back at a different price, depending on what you pull. Okay. So it's definitely getting it to be a big part of the hobby. I don't cover it. I think Swaggle has covered some blind bags here or there, but most of the vintage guys that I think you probably watch are not covering those type of things. But they're definitely getting popular here in the comic space.
Yeah, I guess I wonder too, are the mystery boxes, blind bag things, is it comic book readers that are just like, oh, cool, it's just something new, like it's a mystery, I'll read something new this week or this month? Or is it like, is it related to money where it's like, oh, cool, I got a variant cover and I can resell it or I can grade it and sell it or whatever?
It's manufactured rarity. So there's like a one of whatever that somebody's in a poll and that's the rare book and 100% that's it. So again, that manufactured rarity, I think, is what a lot of people are after. Just like, the cards not Pokemon yet, but the cards, I think comics are starting to follow suit. They're trying to get people to spend more money in these type of things. And, because cards, we could talk a little bit about the card market because you know better than me because I watch your channel all the time about, the space and how like, you talk about like how the market has kind of been suppressed over the last time frame, whatever you use. So I think they're using that as a like a jump off point for new collectors and collectors who don't want to delve their foot into the vintage realm.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
So we got our last super chat of $10. This is the 10th one, so we're definitely giving this thing away. So make sure at some point we'll do this later on. We're going to give this away like I always do. We'll pick a number, and the person who lands on that number will get the prize. So again, I really appreciate everybody out there who did the super chat thing. Very generous of everybody out there. Let's check the next question. Ever heard of a rumor that Kirkman and Jeppy were in a bidding war over DC's library when DC was on the ropes after the 5G flop? I have no idea. I don't really, the new stuff that happens. I'm not really into the industry stuff, all the new stuff, but I will say I love Tyler Kirkham. I think he's fantastic. I follow him on Instagram. I know he does giveaways, stuff like that. So make sure you're following him. And I love his art. And there's not a lot of guys out there and gals that I love their art for new books that come out, but he's like a throwback to my childhood. Although I'll say it's an updated version of how he draws comic book characters.
Have you been diving into the original art scene? Have you been in that or have you stayed out of it, or like, do you have interest in it?
I have some original art a couple of years ago into the Big Apple Comic Con. It's funny because Big Apple Comic Con was the very first comic convention I went to when I got out of college. And it's where I got my first AF-15, believe it or not. But I went back a couple of years ago and there was a dealer there. There's always a few dealers everywhere, especially New York Comic Con. They have these crazy, booths set up of original art. And I'm always asking, like, what does so-and-so cost? And they have these amazing things that, like, covers and splash pages. I'm like, how much is this? Oh, it's 350,000. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's like, why do I ask? But at Big Apple Comic Con a couple years ago, I actually was able to purchase two pages out of Amazing Spider-Man. Actually, one was Spectacular Spider-Man, one was Amazing Spider-Man, and they weren't that bad. They were like, one was like $900, the other one was like $1,500. So nothing crazy, but they were published work. So like one was the Hobgoblin, which I thought was cool because one of my favorite characters, and the other one was Pumpkinhead. So I thought that was cool too. So like, I'm not a huge original art collector only because of the cost of these things are outrageous, and the stuff that I'd want to own, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's just too expensive for me. But how about you? Have you thoughts of jumping into there?
Okay, so the way I'm going to answer this is you're right. It's so expensive, but here's where I feel like I would go in a different direction if I had like Bill Gates money and I was playing around and it was like, yeah, sure, I'm a billionaire, I'm going to jump into collectibles and original art, why not? I'd probably go more of like the movie prop route. I feel like there's so many cool like screen used movie prop type things that I would probably go that route over original art. I mean, this is going to sound dumb, but there was, I can't remember, I think it was like Prop Store or one of these auction houses. And there was an Ace Ventura 2 outfit, like screen used. And it was like the floral shirt with like the shorts, like the cargo shorts, the boot, and the sunglasses. I'm like, I would probably pay if I had just had infinite money. Like I'd rather drop 10 grand on that. And then my son and I would just laugh at it all day as opposed to like one page of original comic art, and the comic art is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, that would be so rad, you know?
So does your son know who Ace Ventura is? How old is he again?
Oh yeah. I mean, so he's 10, my youngest. Right. I've got a 20-year-old who definitely knows. And then a 10-year-old. Yeah. I raised them on Jim Carrey. I raised them right. Yeah,
100%.
The 90s Jim Carrey stuff. So yeah, they do all the, like, you know, like we'll do the impressions at each other and stuff. Yeah, no, they're totally on board with Ace Ventura stuff. But Jim Carrey was always kind of like my comic relief as part of like growing up. You know, it's like if I just need to like get out of my own head, like Jim Carrey's movies and shows and Living Color. Jim Carrey.
Oh, he was phenomenal. That's a show. Like we could do a whole podcast just on fucking Jim Carrey,
Absolutely.
starting at Living Color and then to go on to everything else he did. Oh, I'm using that one. I'm stealing it.
No, use it. Yeah, I mean, there's again, going back to the 80s, 90s, it's like endless. All the different like shows, movies, IP, it's endless. It's all good.
Yeah, you made me forget what I was going to ask you now. Shit. So you brought up buying, Jim Carrey's outfit from Ace Ventura. Like, I get the heritage books all the time about like the stuff they're having upcoming auctions, and they have worn wrestling gear from the Macho Man, Randy Savage, and other people out there. I'm like, dude, that would be something I would buy because that's like one of a kind, worn in a match. Like, I would totally buy that.
Well, and even from like your, investment in quotation marks money, I don't know what that stuff goes for, like the game, the match used Randy Savage stuff, but like game used Michael Jordan stuff or game used Aaron Judge or whatever, like it's all really expensive for sports. So, I mean, that stuff would probably catch on. And like you said, maybe there's one of one type things. Like this was like SummerSlam 98 or something.
That's the thing.
If you remember the match, I mean, that would be incredible.
If he wore it like a house show where nobody knows like the match he was in, then maybe it would sell for cheaper. I still would buy it because I think that's awesome. But like if you wore it like WrestleMania, that's got to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars, I would think. But like, I don't think they listed it where he wore it. It was just like, worn Randy Macho Man Savage trunks, and they have boots. And I would want a robe. If I could get a Ric Flair robe, and I can get it for a good price, I would buy it. I always wanted to make one, but if I could buy one, I would do that in a heartbeat.
It's a piece of pop culture history. It really is. I mean, that stuff is, and it's funny because he's still alive now, but just think like in 5, 10, 20 years down the road, like that stuff is going to be even more sought after just because people are going to think back. Like people might not like him now, but he'll be remembered as an absolute legend. It's like once time passes, all these guys are like, oh, he's, whatever, like he's bad or whatever. Give him time, whatever. And then people will look back and be like, these are the guys that started the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Hulk and Ric Flair and these guys.
Ric Flair to me is definitely top 5. I think he's the greatest on the mic wrestler that's ever been.
I don't own wrestling cards, but I picked up, this is 2019 Transcendent, but I picked up as an on-card autograph for Flair. He signed a ton of stuff, but there's not a lot of sets where it's on card. And then the picture, I actually like this picture because it's not, like it's just him kind of like doing like his glare kind of like stare. But, so I don't have a lot of like wrestling stuff, but, and I also like, I have random stuff. Like I've got a Arnold Schwarzenegger autograph, like, card, like random stuff like that, where I'm like, these guys are just legends. I mean, like you got to have, I want to have something.
These are people we've grown up with, as especially people around our age. We grew up watching wrestling, I'm sure. So like, it's just a part of you. That's the whole thing. I always say this, like about like all the stuff we have in this room, all the stuff we collect, and even sports cards. Like if you're a sports cards fan, you grew up watching the games, like that's a part of you. That's why we collect it. But Patel, again, you've been extremely generous tonight, so I have to answer your question. $2 super chat. AF-15 5.0 Universal versus Batman 1 3.5 restored. Same money. Wow. Rarity obviously goes to the Batman, but because it's restored, I'd rather own the AF-15. And personally, I said this before, AF-15 is the book. If there's one book I'm going to buy, it's AF-15. The popularity, the meaning of the character to me is far more important than the value. And because it's Batman 1 is a restored, I still feel that there's a stigma on restored books, and come for me because I've owned restored Batman 1, I've owned restored Tech 31. I've lost money on the Batman 1. So I'm always going to choose AA15 over any book unless it's a Blue Label Tech 27 or Action 1. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, for me, so this is kind of a tough one for me because this is like a straight up tie for me for AF15 and the Batman 1. I love the AF15, but I don't necessarily like Spider-Man more than Batman. It's kind of a weird, that's like a really tough push and pull for me. But I'm with you though. I would rather have a non-restored book. Now, if you told me that it was a nice presenting Batman 1 that was like a 2.0 that was not restored, but it wasn't, so it's a lower grade, but it's not restored, or 1.5, that would be really tough for me. And I know that sounds weird because, that's like a 5.0 AF15, but just having a copy of Batman 1 like you did, I mean, like that would be incredible.
But you know what? A Batman 1 2.0 Blue Labels, it'll wonder a lot more than an AF15 5.0 because it's a Blue Label. So like, it wouldn't be equal. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Or maybe a 1.0 or something comparable, like a decent looking 1.0 or something, which that's probably tough.
There was a 1.0 that was like, it wasn't a decent looking. It definitely had a lot of damage to it, but I think it sold for like 40 something thousand. So that maybe in that case, it would be tough because the rarity to find a 1.0 Blue Label Batman 1, the lower grades that actually look okay are probably a lot harder to find than some of the mid-grade ones that are Blue Label because they're more desirable because more people can afford them, right? That the higher grades we go Blue Label, like forget it. They get so expensive that not everybody can do it. But here's an interesting comment we have from, I have a smudge on my glasses. Again, great name. Isn't everyone a reseller? Just a matter of when we sell. Just like the stock market, some are day traders, but others are long-term investors, and then they're holders. So I agree with you, man. At some point, you got to let go of everything. So that's an interesting question I'm going to pose to you. You're a little younger than me, but when do you plan on passing all this stuff down, or are you just going to start selling stuff off at one point?
So I think there's certain things that so when I look at my collection, I look at, can I get this back? Can I ever get this back? And for those sorts of things, that'll be the last thing that I sell. Like, for example, one card that I have is a Drew Brees black refractor rookie card. It's numbered to 100. But what's unique about that card, the card's numbered to 100, so that part's not unique. You can find them, but it's signed by Brees, and then he inscribed it Cool Brees, like an inscription. And there's not another one like that. It's a one of a kind. Now, granted, somebody could go to Drew Brees, take that card, and there's 100 of them, so it could be replicated. But for me, being a New Orleans Saints fan, 40-year New Orleans Saints fan, we're season ticket holders, like that's going to be one that I would look to pass down. I have a Star Jordan 101. It might be a rookie card if you think of it as a rookie card. It's from his rookie season, but there's a huge debate in the sports card world. I won't start that fire here on your channel, Lawrence, but I also have an 86 Fleer for him too. But the 86 Fleer is a card you can get, so that's something where I feel like everybody has a price too, and it's all about timing. But it's kind of like with any card. And I've asked diehard sports card collectors that are, like hodlers. And I've said, and they have huge cards. I have a buddy that has a $500,000 Michael Jordan card. And I was like, the market's so crazy. What if it went to $2 million? And he's like, I'd probably sell it. It just gets to a point where it's like, it reaches a point where it's silly, and I'd have to seriously consider it. So I do think that everybody does have a price, even, and one thing I will say though, too, is it's easy to say that you're never going to sell if you're only buying lower dollar items. So it's kind of like if you only have like $1 comic books, or you have $1 cards, and you're like, hey, I'm a collector, I don't sell anything. Well, yeah, they're 50 cents or $1 cards. Like they're not, it's different when you have, more expensive things. It's just, and you've had to work to get up to those things. It's totally different, so I don't know, but I do agree though. Everybody's a seller, whether it's tomorrow or it's on your deathbed, or maybe it's retirement, and we never know what's coming around the corner. I might have a plan today, and in 10 years, it might be like, you know what, maybe I need to buy, my kid a house or whatever, who knows? I need to, pay a medical bill. I don't know. So yeah.
I think the main takeaway is that anything that's sentimental to us, we probably want to pass down. But if it's not sentimental to us, we'll probably let it go at some point for some money. Yeah, but again, it depends on value. If the value shoots up, you're probably better off just selling it and giving whoever the money at some point. But here's a great question, and I'm glad somebody finally mentioned this in the chat. Patel says, I keep hearing page quality is kind of overrated because you can crack a creamer book, resubmit it, and get off-white results. Is it really that subjective, and thus should it matter as much? So I'm going to say this, is that yes and no. If you buy a book that's a cream page book, you're going to get it for a cheaper price. You should never pay top dollar for a cream. Even an off-white pager, when we're talking about Bronze Age book, you want white pages. So I'm going to say this. If you buy a cream pager, you plan on resubmitting it, and you resubmit it and get a higher page quality, good for you. I think page quality is the biggest joke in comics. I'm not going to lie to you, because when we're talking about subjectivity, they have a standard that they use that they're going to hold up against the page, and it's all over the place. So I don't know how one book goes from cream, then to off-white, then from cream to off-white. It makes no sense to me. So if you're a resubmitter and you like doing that stuff, I agree with you. Get the book for as cheap as you can, clean it, press it, send it off. Maybe you get a bump in page quality. But if you're a buyer to keep in your collection, buy the best page quality you can, because it does matter when buying books, especially Bronze Age books. And when we're talking about cream books and Silver Age books, it does matter. People shy away from those when they want to buy for their personal collection. So yes, it matters. But if you're a reseller, buy the shittiest thing if you're going to resubmit it anyway and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't have a hard stance on this, but I will say I had a buddy that bought a low grade X-Men 1. And the one thing that kind of pushed him over the edge to pick that one is it was white pages. So it was, like it was a pretty nice presenting copy, but it was a white pages X-Men 1. And so, if you're looking at 1.5s and 2.0s on a book, and a lot of them are kind of similar, they're beat up here or beat up there, having a white pages copy, I think that was what kind of helped get him over the hump on that one. It was a good deal.
Yeah, there's definitely a premium that has to be had for page quality. But again, if it's your personal copy, I agree. Buy the page quality that's going to get you the best bang for your buck. But again, if you're going to plan on cracking or resubmitting, you don't mind trying to get that bump. I'm not saying you're going to, but if that's your game plan, then yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Buy Dorothy's ruby slippers. So when I'm not a big Heritage Live guy watching stuff, but I was on this thing when these things sold, and I reported it on my Instagram, and I think I did a video on it as well, because I was a huge Wizard of Oz fan growing up as a kid. I was shocked on how much they went for. So just goes to show you what you said before about movie props. That might be the movie prop, right?
It's pretty incredible. The one thing that was amazing about that one to me was they said in the listing that it's one of 4 pairs. It would be one thing if it was the only one that they knew of. Then I could see okay, somebody went bananas on this, and they, what would they pay? $32 million or something? I think that's what it was.
It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but no, it's one of 4. So if you have the other, I mean, my God, if you're if you have another pair, you're probably like, holy hell, let me call it Heritage and get that thing up for auction.
But it's funny because the pair that went up for sale had a story behind it, because they were stolen at some point and then they were recovered. So I think that played a part into why these things sold for the amount that they sold for, because there was a huge story behind it. But either way, incredible piece of movie history. Probably, I want to say the piece of movie history. But again, I'm a big movie guy, and I know you are as well. So what does he said? I heard Drew's favorite drink is a sea breeze. I think he's breaking chops, I think, at this point. Run me through. Thank you for joining us tonight, brother. I have no issue with flippers. Get your hustle on, but some of us, I assume, don't fund the hobby by reselling, and that's fine too. So this is a great topic, because I'm glad you're here, because I know in the card space, a lot of people are exactly that. And I think, unfortunately, the comic space has gotten to be that as well, where I think a good 75% of the market is people buying to flip. If you had to gauge the card market, what percentage would you give on that?
Very high, because a lot of people are buying and selling to fund PC items, kind of fund more longer term holds. But I will say, though, too, in trading cards, it's kind of like comic books on steroids a little bit, when you think about oh, we're speculating on a new movie release or a TV show or a new character or something's happening here. In cards, it's all sports related. So you're speculating on which athletes are going to, who do you think is going to do well? Which one of these rookies is going to have a good career? Which one of these veterans is going to come back off injury and do well? like there's all sorts of different storylines that could maybe push prices up and down depending on what happens, So I think in sports cards, there's an element of, I think there's a sports betting element to sports card flipping. People that do daily fantasy football or do, they bet on games. They're like, you know what? I like how this rookie's looking. Baseball prospecting is huge. These guys that are in the minors, they'll go ahead and buy their first Bowmans. They'll hold on to them. And then when they get called up, they're looking to sell, and it's that you just see a lot of it. I think there's just more opportunity in trading cards for this.
So it's fun. It's funny because I don't know if you remember this when you were a kid, but Greg Jeffries, I'm a big Mets fan. So like Greg Jeffries, before he came up, like the whole big thing, he was going to be a fucking superstar. And everybody and their grandmother was looking for his Topps rookie card. When it finally came out, everybody was hoarding that card. And then I don't want to say he was terrible. He wasn't a great player. It didn't live up to expectations, but I see this, what you're telling me sounds like that just went through my mind when you said that, because I feel like everybody, it's just betting. Like you're betting on whether this player is going to be, what everybody thinks he's going to be.
And in some ways it's way worse because you can lose bigger, today. Like, back in 1990, you could buy a bunch of Greg Jeffries cards, but you weren't spending. I mean, I guess if you're buying a ton of volume, if you're buying 1,000 of them or something, Todd Van Poppel and Don Mikowski, and these guys, I remember Don Mikowski was the next great Packers quarterback, Bubby Brister for the Steelers, I mean, it's endless, but today, now you can speculate on lower dollar cards for these guys, but what's different today is now a lot of these rookies, they've got 5-figure, 6-figure, sometimes even 7-figure cards. And they haven't even, I mean, Caitlin Clark has $500,000 cards,
That's insane.
I mean, so, coming out, that's some serious cash. Now, are the average Joes buying those? Probably not. I would assume that these are well-off people, but I mean, maybe they're not. What if someone's taking out a second mortgage to go and prospect on baseball? People, I don't know.
I hope not.
I hope not too. Yeah.
Here's a great comment. How much is the noose that the Munchkin used to hang himself worth? Damn, I went too dark there. Dude, I remember that, man. That was a big thing back in the day. And I remember looking, I probably see the movie about 500 times, but like I remember looking for it. And you can't spot it. If you're watching the movie, it's hard to spot, but then I'll see somebody pause it and you see it in the background. So like it's, again, part of the history of the movie. I think that's why everything, if you probably were to buy something else besides the ruby slippers from that film, it probably just as go for not the amount that went for, but it just probably go for an insane amount of money just because the movie's iconic.
Yep. And I think that's going to continue on. I think I don't want to do the we're just getting started type thing because who knows? I mean, the Ace Ventura thing I was talking about, the bidding was at $7,500 for that outfit. It's not as if they were giving it away and nobody cared about it. Like the bidding was high on it already. So it's probably not something that is, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are already spending money on it. But if you're thinking about money that is typically spent on artwork, maybe some people are like, you know what? I've got enough art. I'm going to buy some cool pop culture stuff.
What do you do? What do you do with it though? I know you said before, you're going to put it in your living room and you're sort of just going to laugh at it. What do you do with something like that? Do you buy like a mannequin and put the clothes on it and just look at it?
So on the listing, it was on a mannequin. So I'm like, do you get the mannequin? I don't know. I should reach out to those guys. Do you get the mannequin?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I would probably have to. You're right, though. Would I just put it in a closet? I feel like there's a lot of money to just like throw in a closet. I feel like it would have to be displayed like with his face. It'd have to be like a weird thing. I don't know. I'd have to think on that more. I wasn't close enough to buying it, but yeah, it would have to go in the man cave.
That would be like if you have indispensable money, we're just throwing money at everything. Here, take it. But you know what? We got only 15 people in the chat right now, so I want to do this giveaway. So you want to hang out a little bit or no?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So since we hit that 10 super chat giveaway, I have something that was actually given to me on a live show with Elite, which is really cool. I actually like the cover on this thing. So we're going to give it away here right now. So I'm going to pick a number between 1 and 25, which should make it pretty fair. And I just wrote the number down. Okay. So everybody who's still in the chat right now, there's 15 people, it says, put a number between 1 and 25, only type the number once. Okay. And we'll give it a couple of minutes to make sure everybody, we have like the amount of entries. And if there's two people with the same number, that's fine. What we'll do is we'll run it again with just those two people and we'll go from there. So, but either way, just write. I find this is like the funnest way and the easiest way to do giveaways when we're on a live stream. So write a number between 1 and 25 and we'll do it that way. Again, I already wrote the number down. So there we go. I'm starting to see some numbers flood in. If nobody gets to the number then we'll do it again, because I don't want to do like the closest, because then if you're close by one above, one under, then it's not a big deal. But you know what? It's funny. I've actually got we didn't talk about anything that I plan on talking about outside of like certain comic market things. So while we're doing this, I'm going to bring some other things up, but obviously New York Comic Con is coming up for me. It's in next couple of weeks. They have the second weekend in October. When was the last time you went to a con, like a Comic Con? Not just, I know you went to the National and you went to the other sports card show that was in, I think it was in New York. What was it called?
Yeah, Fanatics Fest.
Fanatics. That was it. I was going to go to that this year. I didn't make it, but when's the last time you went to a Comic Con?
So I didn't go to Heroes Con this past summer. It's in Charlotte. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina area. So that's a 2.5 hour drive for me. So I like going to Heroes Con, but it was same weekend as Fanatics Fest. So I missed Heroes Con this year. The last like true Comic Con I went to was that one a year ago. So a year and 3 months ago. I did go to Galaxy Con, which is not necessarily a Comic Con, but there are comic book dealers there, but it's more of a pop culture. If you look them up, they're all over the country. They're awesome. They'll have a bunch of actors and different people that are there. So yeah, I went to a Galaxy Con here in Raleigh going back a few months ago, and then I went to Richmond, Virginia. There was one about 6 months ago. So I've hit the pop culture cons, but not necessarily the Comic Con here recently.
Do you collect video games as well, or just cards, comics, toys?
I do. I've got about 30 graded games. So I don't buy necessarily the loose stuff, but I've got like WATA and CGC graded games. Well, now WATA is PSA. So I have to now send all my graded WATA stuff over to PSA to get reholdered. But
did they change the label, or is it going to be WATA? Because I haven't seen any PSA labels for games.
They're going to change it. I think it starts October 20th. So in about a month, they're going to be PSA labels. And to me, they look similar to the comic book one. I haven't looked at it, a ton. They just announced last couple of days that they're switching WATA over to PSA. But to me, it looks very uniform, kind of with the, as the comic book label.
That's wild, man. CGC better tighten their purse strings, because PSA, they already own the card space. They're coming into comics, and now they're going into video games, which I think CGC had kind of pulled ahead of WATA when we're talking about video games. I really do. WATA came on the scene first, and I think it really hurt them that their labels weren't that great, but also the cases were just whacked out of their minds. Like, they did not look great. They ended up changing their case to help out, but I think by the time CGC already came out, the labels were the same as their comic labels, so people were used to them, and the cases themselves are actually really nice. So I didn't really know that until you just told me that the PSA is now taking over WATA, which is
so Collectors has owned WATA for 4 years. So like Collectors owns PSA, and they've owned WATA for 4.5 years. So they've owned them for a while. It was just that they didn't switch over all the branding. So they just kept it as WATA, and then just recently they were like, okay, let's move this over and make everything uniform, which I'm really happy about. I think it's going to really help. Well, first off, I also have CGC graded games too. And it's funny because people are like, oh, PSA is getting into the graded comic book game, and are they going to, sell for the same, or how are they going to sell? CGC got into the graded game like industry maybe a couple of year and a half ago, and they very quickly had comparable sales. I think it's going to be similar with PSA on the, on the graded gaming front, on the graded comic book front. I think that the sales, maybe it won't be initially. I just don't think it's going to take very long for them to be comparable to each other. So those two companies, I think, are really ascending. There's other grading companies, but those two companies are really doing it.
I do think I agree with you, Manu, that the scandal in the beginning did hurt them. And the fact, that these games, the prices paid for some of these games are astronomical, I don't want to say pressure. Pressure is not the right word, but like put real onus and putting it out there and making things known when probably they probably shouldn't have gotten that kind of notoriety for all the prices that these things are going for. So did you hear about this? While we're talking about graded games, there was an original NES Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. that was brought into a video game store that was sealed. First editions, releases from the 1985 Nintendo console NES, and they were brought into a game shop, and the guy didn't think they were real, so he ended up trading, or giving the guy either store credit or trading for something that the guys wanted to buy in the store, ended up having these two, sealed games, ended up sending them off for grading, and they came back real.
Oh
And
man.
and they just sold, one of them sold for like over 300,000. The other one I think was just under $200,000.
Yeah.
Insane.
I love it. I love all I wasn't a big Atari guy. I was more NES. I'm 44, so Atari is a little before my time, but I do have some graded Atari stuff. Yeah, I've got a handful of graded Atari games just for the history of it. It's
Yeah.
to me, it's kind of similar to collecting vintage baseball cards or collecting 80s, sports cards. Like what's hilarious is vintage games are what we grew up with. Like vintage games are basically like what we had that was the first stuff. And so and it's really like the box art, I've got like Mega Man, which has got the cheesy like NES box, and then you've got the Zelda stuff. It's incredible, especially given how much the IP has grown, Mario and Luigi, and all the, all of the characters. I've got Metroid and I've got, all these different things, but yeah, to me, it's just collecting history. I love that stuff.
So do I. So I actually got this. It's an Atari system that was re-released that plays vintage Atari games. It came out a couple of years ago. My wife got it for me for Christmas, so I ended up picking up a lot of Atari games. Did a video on it on the channel. So if you're a video game person, I actually put that out. But all right, so for the giveaway, the number was 24, and nobody put that number in there. So we're gonna do this again. Okay, so the last one I got was Angry Straight White Male for 21. So we're gonna narrow this down. There's 20 people in the chat now. 1 to 20. So start over, drop me a number 1 to 20 down in the chat. So redo. I just put the new number down. I wrote it down. So again, we're going to run this again. Hopefully somebody gets it this time. But here we go. So put that number in the chat, 1 to 20, starting now. Go for it. And I'll wait till I stop seeing numbers. Just put it in there once, and we'll go from there. All right. So we talked about New York Comic Con. Is everybody in the chat going to New York Comic Con? And I know you were just in New York not too long ago, right? No, you were in Italy. I apologize. Italy not too long ago. And I'm Italian, so I know your wife's Italian. So how did you like that experience? It has nothing to do with comics or collectibles, but being from there, I like to see how people enjoy, Italy.
Yeah, well, I've been with my wife for 16 years, and she was born and raised in Florence. So her dad still lives in Florence with her cousins and all that. So when we go there, we do some of the touristy stuff, but it's hanging out with Manu. It's hanging out
2.4. What is that? 2.4? Come on.
It's hanging out with a lot of the family and just catching up with them. So I've been there. I don't know. I've probably been there 5 or 6 times. I love it. My family is from England. So my grandparents are in England and stuff. So we go to, the one thing that's bad about that though, is when we go to Europe, we have to go see family. So not that I don't like seeing the family, but I also am like, damn it, I want to go see like touristy stuff and go off and do different things. So we did do that this trip. We went to Italy and we went to Iceland. So that was kind of fun to go troll around Iceland for a little bit. But
how was it with like the language barrier? Did your wife speak Italian or no?
Yeah. She grew up there. She moved to the US when she was 15. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that it's easy because she does all the talking.
Yeah. It would be very hard. Like that's why I have never been to Italy, but my dad was been there. My grandmother, my dad is fluent in Italian. My grandmother, obviously who passed, is fluent in Italian. She grew up there, but it's wild because I'm Italian, but I don't speak the language. But I still want to go. I don't know much of my family that still lives there, but that's one place, and I'm not a huge traveler, that I would love to go take my wife. But did you have a good time not being from the heritage?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love traveling in general. Next year we're going to go to Japan. But so,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I love traveling, but yeah, it's just really nice people overall. It's very welcoming. Italians are always, like it's the best like chefs on earth, so, like the food is always great. The wine is good. It's like all of it's good. So it's hard if you go to Italy and you're complaining, then there's probably something wrong with you, like of all the countries to go visit, like it's a very welcoming people.
I saw you put out that video. You went to a sports card shop in Italy, which I thought was really cool. I didn't think something like that would exist over there.
Well, they don't actually. So we thought it was a sports card store, and it was more of like a gaming, like a TCG. It was like Yu-Gi-Oh! It was like Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. There was a little bit of Pokemon. But I asked the guy straight up, I was like, are there any sports card stores? And he's like, I honestly don't even know if there's any like in like all of Florence or Rome, like all of this whole area. I don't think that there are any. Now that's something that Fanatics is trying to change. Fanatics, of course, taking over the sports card collectibles world. They just opened a store in London. They opened up their kind of like their flagship Europe store is in London, and I think that they're really going to try to grow out in Europe. So we'll see. Maybe Italy will be a sports card hub.
Yeah, I mean, just wild. When I saw that video, I'm like, wow, like I didn't think anything like that would exist overseas, especially like a place like Italy. But what the hell do I know? So this is a great comment, Pi 3.14. If I actually wrote that down and somebody put that, like you deserve more than what you're getting in here. I will say that, but I will say I'm going to give it another minute because somebody did win this thing. So one more minute. It is now 9:41. When we get to 9:42, I'm going to cut it off and I'll reveal the winner. But like I said, I have a couple other topics that I want to talk about. One, do you collect VHS at all?
No, it's probably the one category I haven't touched. And it's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't think it's cool. I mean, like I remember going to the Video 98 even before like Blockbuster Video was a big thing. And, you know, they had like the adult section, the adult video section, like behind the curtain, you know, like in the back of the store. Do you remember those? Like the old days? I love it. Like I remember just looking at all like the horror movies, like when you're a kid and you're walking around and you see like Friday the 13th and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is that? You know, or like, Fright Night, you know, with kind of the scary VHS covers. So I respect it. But I've never gotten into actually like buying them, collecting them.
Does anybody in the chat collect VHS? Because this is a market that is actually taking off and it's recently become like an attention for me. I don't think anybody should be paying premium dollars for VHS at all. Don't get me wrong. It's like a dead technology that people are just kind of buying this stuff now because it's nostalgia. So I think eventually it's going to be like come back to earth, like a lot of the video game stuff, but I do think it's cool. I was just like you said, I remember going to the video store and like waiting on releases and seeing some of the covers they have for some of these things, the sleeves. And I remember certain movies coming out that I was like super excited to see that I didn't get to see in the theater. Like, this is gonna sound wild, but I remember the movie Harry and the Hendersons with the fucking Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
On the cover.
I was enamored with that movie for some reason. I don't know why.
Yep.
Summer Rental was another one that I love. I've seen the movie. I love the movie, but like enamored with that. Every time I go to the VC, whatever, Blockbuster, whatever the fuck it was a little VHS shop that I went to. Porky's was always another one, and my good buddy always wants to tell me like I want to come on and do a show and talk about 80s movies, and we're actually going to film it on Tuesday. Oh, so cool. Yeah, it's an 80s movies podcast. So make sure everybody tunes out. But while I have you here, me and you did a podcast a couple of weeks back, almost about a month ago. There's 2 on the channel. So make sure everybody out there goes and watches, or listens to that, because we had such a great conversation, not only about comics, about cards, about toys, about how we grew up and stuff like that. It was such a great listen. So again, I thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was a blast. I mean, it kind of plays into that the channel, that second channel we talked about, the back to the 80s, 90s. I can talk to, I mean, I've got a lot of sports card friends to talk to, and I've got people like in certain sections, areas. There's comic book people I know, there's gaming people I know, but it's fun to kind of talk about all of it, because not everybody, lived through those times or is as into it as some of us are. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So it's funny because Run Me Through says VCRs right now, somebody else told me this as well. Actual VCRs are selling at like ridiculous prices right now. Like the actual technology of like the VCR, it's crazy because I remember like when CD players first came out and DVD players first came out, like everybody was throwing away the VHS. If I had known that they were going to be worth money, I would have kept it, which is wild to me.
That's cool.
All right. Collecting VHS is 1986. Jesus Christ. How many do you have? Run me through. I'm sorry, OHAM. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I apologize. How many VHS do you have? It's 1986. That's 40 years. You got to be sitting on some coin, my friend. So I got to tell you.
One thing with VHS that I was a little hesitant with, and I know you could probably say this about anything that's sealed, video games being one too, but the sealed VHS, it makes me think of like, I don't know. I guess it's just I'm worried about stuff being resealed. Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I don't know, like it worries me that like, is that the original sealed VHS or was that resealed by like a Walmart employee? Like that was like maybe it got opened, it was returned. Like what about returns? Stuff gets like resealed. So that's why with like some of that stuff, it's kind of similar with video games too, though. That's why I don't have like I'm not pouring huge money into the sealed video game market, for the same reason.
what's weird about the video game market is I don't understand why. I understand when people collect like PS2, PS3, PS4 like games, but like people who grade those games and they're in like, the flip case, like those things, I don't know, like why are we grading those? Like I understand why we graded cardboard NES games, Atari NES games, because like this heavy damage occurred to those things, but like these things that are plastic, I don't think too much damage, occurs to these things. Maybe I'm wrong. There are a lot more
Yeah.
new, there's a lot more copies out there. So why would we grade those? Collect, yes. Grade, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Sega Genesis, like the clamshells. They're
Yeah,
really tough. I mean, like those clamshells are like pretty sturdy,
yeah.
So like Sonic the Hedgehog, it's like there's quite a few copies. And then yeah, I agree with you. I buy NES because I like the box art from that original NES. And that was kind of the console that really caught fire and went nuts. And you could say the same maybe for Atari too. The only issue with Atari is there's still a lot of, I lovingly say hoarders. And you could say this about anything, but people have Atari. A lot of those sealed Atari boxes were like six. They're like six boxes in a case. So there's basically like people have literally like like cases of sealed Atari games. They made
I
so
know.
many of them, and so that's why it's like, okay, well, it might be 50 years old, but that might be one that came right out of a case, like a sealed case. Still really cool, but it's not as if it's mega rare or anything like that.
You could find sealed Atari games for like $30. The
Right.
crazy, like unbelievable. I actually I looked at this not too long ago because I was interested in buying a Spider-Man Atari game and I couldn't believe how cheap they were. I'm like, wow, I remember playing this game. How is a sealed one of these so cheap? And then I realized, wow, there's a lot of these still out there, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like the numbers have stopped coming in. So we're going to actually give away the winner. I saw one of these. So congratulations to Luis Mendoza, who wrote the number 20. There's no other number 20s out there. So Luis Mendoza, what I want you to do, my friend, is my email is in the description of every video that I put out. Just email me and say, hey, I won the giveaway. Send me your address, and I will gladly ship this off to you on Monday. Congratulations, my friend. Thank you for being a part of the stream tonight. And thank you for everybody who put out the super chats. It was a modest 10 today, and we easily reached that. So thank you, especially to Patel, who probably contributed to about 7 or 8 of those. I appreciate it. That my friend always asking me to do live streams, so here I am for you, and I really appreciate you guys. So before I let you go, is there anything that you want to say to the community out there? I do want to talk about something personal, so I want to do that after I let you go. So like, but anything you want to say out there besides like obviously to sub to your channel, the nostalgia channel, especially because me and you are kind of on the same wavelength with that stuff.
I would just say kind of it's holistically, there's so much for us to enjoy. I know the world is a weird place, especially in the news over the last week or two. It's we're all kind of, I feel like we're all got like at each other's throats over various issues or whatever. But for me, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it's just an escape from all of that. So even when grading goes sideways or, something happens in the industry or something that's annoying or, oh my God, this writer sucks. Or if we're talking about comic books or the art sucks here or there, but it's like, damn, at least we have it though. I'm really thankful that we have community and we have all these cool memories and things from these items. And I don't know, it's just, I could talk about it all day. So yeah, I would just say that just lean into your hobbies, folks.
I agree with you, man. Like this is supposed to be fun. So all the people out there who are like worried about losing money, which I get it. Don't get me wrong. Money's a big part of life. It's a huge part of life, but like, don't skip over the enjoyment of the ride, right? That's why me and you
Yep.
were in it. We're enjoying all the stuff that we put out, not only the content, but the collecting and the nostalgia, because the nostalgia is what brings up the memories that we have as kids. And I don't know if you saw today, I put out a video about you see that He-Man leak? One thing I forgot
I
to ask
watched
you
it.
about this.
I
The
watched
you also crazy. I think he looks fantastic. I'm getting super excited right now, like
it. I
just
know.
thinking about how all these other characters are going to look.
I'm actually worried now though, because it's like expectations when I walk into that movie theater can't be any higher. It's going to be like Star Wars, like in the year 2000 when like episode like Phantom Menace hits,
Yeah.
like that's the kind of expectation I've got for this movie now.
The one thing I'll say about Star Wars is that you already had like 3 great movies when those
Yeah.
prequels hit. We haven't had one of these yet. We haven't had like a great He-Man film, and just to see what he looks like, and the fact that we got that image of Battle Cat, we are getting like a true Battle Cat and He-Man. Like we didn't have any of that in that 87 movie from Lundgren. So like I just feel like he's going to do this right. And I'm just like, that's the most thing I'm looking forward to next year. I can't wait till June of 2026.
Yeah, and the thing I think that we're probably both thinking is there's so much opportunity for there to be a larger universe with it. There's so much opportunity if you do it right and if you really stay true to the original stuff. There's so many different stories you can go off. They can make 10 movies if they're done right. I mean, and so hopefully that happens for all of us.
I appreciate it. Dustin, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you joining me tonight. It was fun. And like, again, you're going to be on the podcast again. And me and Dustin talked about me going on his channel as well, his second channel. Say it again. What's the name of it?
Back to the 80s, 90s.
Make sure you guys are subbed up to him, not only his sports cars channel, but that channel as well, because I will be appearing at some point on that channel as well. Just talk about all the stuff we talked about tonight. So again, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one, man. You too.
Right.
Take care.
Yeah.
All right. So that was Dustin over at the Sports Car Dad. One of the best dudes in our collecting community. I'll put it that way. If you guys are not into card collecting, that's okay. I know we talk a lot of comics here. We talk a lot of other things collectible on the channel, but he is such a great person in this community. He has a lot of knowledge about cards and other things collectibles. So make sure you're subbing up him. If you're a sports cards fan, and Sports Cards Dad channel, but also at that 80s and 90s channel, because it does put out some great stuff. So make sure you guys are subbed up him as well. But back to the chat, and I do have something specific I want to talk to you guys about tonight before I let you go. We're almost at this thing 2 hours, and I love doing lives, and I have to give a big shout out to Patel, because he's kind of made me want to go on more and do more lives and do more podcasts, stuff like that. So thank you for Patel for kind of making me do this stuff. So I really appreciate you, but just make sure you know that. Before I get to my last topic, Run Me Through says, anyone afraid He-Man is going to be a comedy like the movie adaptations of Starsky and Hutch and Chips and movies like that? So I recently put out a video about how I thought that there was going to be a little bit too much comedy in the movie, but after seeing what I put out today and the leak of He-Man on Battle Cat, I got to be honest with you, man. If you go back and watch some of the cartoons from the 1980s, there was a lot of comedy in that cartoon. Skeletor was the main focus of comedy, right? Always berating some of his henchmen. Trapjaw, Beastman, Triclops were all kind of buffoons. Ram Man was kind of a comedic character from the 1980s cartoon. So yes, comedy should be, put in this movie. Should it be the focal point? No. But seeing the images that we saw, I mean, it tells me we're getting a true to form He-Man. I do think there'll be some comedic aspects. Don't get me wrong, but I do think it will be an adventure movie with some comedy thrown into it. And I think I'm super psyched. And anybody who is a He-Man and a Masters of the Universe fan should be ultra excited, because if you go back and watch Bumblebee, Travis Knight's Transformers movie, you will see the kind of movie you're going to get. A great story, heartfelt emotion, and a throwback, right? That movie started off on Cybertron, which we never got from the original Transformers movies. So a throwback to the characters themselves, history of the character. That's what you want to see from a director. If you want to see from actors, is that, there is history involved from the characters themselves. And that goes back to comics. Like when we see from Spider-Man, we see from Batman, we want to see, what we've read through the comics portrayed on screen. That is the most important thing. And I think we're going to get that when we're talking about this movie. Run Me Through says, Dustin and Manu are his man crushes. Me too. I won't repeat the rest of that, but yes, 100%. All right. My last topic for tonight before I let you guys go. All right. So I have something I want to tell you guys. Ready? At the end of this year, I'm expecting to move on from my primary career. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I plan on closing my professional workspace and doing something else with my professional career going forward. Okay. And I'm not sure what that's going to be, but I want to take a shot at doing something in this industry. And when I say that, obviously being in collectibles, being in this channel, talking about everything collectible and everything nostalgia, I would like to do something in this industry. I just don't know what yet. I don't know what opportunity is going to come before me to say, or I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do this. All I know is I know I have to make my own way going forward. And it's probably going to be towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Okay. So I would like some advice from everybody out there. I have thought about possibly doing my own hosting stream where I would host other collectors on YouTube wanting to either sell their collections, talk about comics, talk about other things. But primarily, maybe sell off collectibles or talk about collectibles that they have in their possession that they'd like to kind of get rid of. So right now, I do work for Elite Comics 11. It's a very small part-time role. I would love to work with them more often, but right now where they are, they don't really need me too often. It's just kind of where they need me. So it won't be in direct competition with them at all. Maybe something I do once a week where I take a fellow collector and help them sell off certain things that they want to move on from. So with that said, I would love to hear from you guys about what you'd like to see, if that's something you'd be interested in going forward. Obviously, I would still be doing stuff here on the channel as long as I'd be able to, my life permits it. You know, obviously, depending on content, I've asked for input from you guys about what you'd like to see going forward from content wise, because your viewership is why I do this stuff, right? If nobody ends up watching this stuff or listening to the podcast, eventually it's going to end. And obviously, the podcast is relatively new. I love doing it, so it's going to stay here for a little bit. And we have some great conversations, important conversations that I think everybody should be listening to, because I did a video with Swaggle about a month and a half ago about the void that our collectibles fill, and I think it's important. And then when I did the interview with, and I shouldn't interview, the podcast with Manu a couple of weeks back, we really touched on what makes us, not only collectors, but human beings, and why we do the things that we do. And this is important for me to kind of go forward and discuss what I want to do going forward with my life. I'm 47 years old, for Christ's sake. I have a kid going to college next year, and I'm ending my professional business, which I've been doing for, what's it, 25 years. So it's a little bit of a change for me, but my professional business is not something that I've wanted to do my entire life. I've just kind of done it. So I want to take the rest of my life to kind of go ahead and do the things that I want to do the things that I enjoy. And talking about collectibles and using my expertise to help other collectors, or maybe help them sell stuff, or help them do other things, or give any type of help that I can to any other collector. If I can monetize that and enjoy it and do the things that I love, I want to take advantage of that opportunity. So I'm going to try to do this, but I need you guys' help. I want to hear what you think, what you want. If it's something you think I should go ahead and do, uh, but I'm throwing it out there. I've mentioned a few times here on the channel and on Instagram how if there's a specific company that is looking for someone to be a spokesperson or host a show or do any type of collectible entertainment or review or whatever it is that pertains to our hobby, that I am your guy. I think I put out pretty good content. I put a lot of effort and work into the things that I put out there, not only on YouTube, but on Instagram or wherever I put out content, that I think I am your guy. So I hope everybody out there who ends up listening to this or wanting to see this, here's my pitch and gives me some input on what I should do going forward, and if this is something to be interested in. So hoping everybody can kind of give me an answer on this, whether you're hearing it now or you're hearing it later on, listening to the podcast, whether on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are. I want to try to make this my future, whether it be a part-time thing or a full-time thing. I have no idea, but I definitely want this to be a part of my, you know, ongoing as a human being. I'll put it like that. So thank you for whoever wrote this, but I have to apologize. My mouse is giving me a fucking problem here. There we go. Run me through 47, but don't look a day over 30. I don't know about that one, bro, but I appreciate it. You can see all this white in my beard here. I'm definitely showing my age, but I appreciate the sentiment, my friend. I really do. Jonathan Medici, Comic Avalon. You look great, dude. You look 35. Dude, both of you guys, thank you so much, my man. That I got to tell you, I look 35 maybe, but I feel like I'm 98. I'm not going to lie to you. My shoulder's fucked up. My back's fucked up. My oldest son just tore his labrum in his shoulder playing football. So I think I have something going on my shoulder as well. But I appreciate the compliments, man. I do this for you guys. Don't get me wrong. Love that you're going to be getting deeper into the passion and explore the professional possibilities. Thank you, Manu. I got to be honest, man. You're one of my inspirations. Something I've always wanted to do. I'm going to take a stab at this thing and see what happens. Throw myself at the wall and see if it sticks, type of thing. But when you guys listen to the podcast that me and Manu put out next week on Friday, it's going to air. You're going to see what I mean, because I'm going to put it this way. If you guys have seen the Batman trilogies and you devote yourself to an ideal, and that's what Batman says in the very first Batman movie, the Christopher Nolan movies, you devote yourself to an ideal and become a symbol. And that's what really, I don't want to give the whole podcast away, but that's what really Manu has done over his course of living. So I'll leave it at that. You know, he's an inspiration. Make sure you watch and listen to that podcast because you can get a lot out of it. What you need to do, what you should strive to be as a person, as a human being, and get what you want out of life. That's the biggest part of this is getting what you want out of life. If you haven't gotten what you want out of life so far, stop what you're doing. I know we all have responsibilities. Don't get me wrong. You, me, your mother, your grandmother, everyone who is, we all have responsibilities. But you know what? At the end of the day, you have allotted a certain amount of time on this earth. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, which I have not been doing for 25 years, don't get me wrong, it's been a good life for me. I'm not going to complain, but you got to do what you're happy with, right? You got to do the things that you want to be happy with in life. And you got to be with someone that allows you to do those things. That's the next thing, right? I can go on and on about life and about whatever. We don't need to go through all that shit, but you know, you got to be happy. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. So we're going to see how this thing works out. But if you guys are interested in me hosting other collectors and having them sell off certain things, or talking about comics while we do it, because I think that's an interesting part of it, right? We can sell books, we can sell other collectibles, we can talk about nostalgia, but like, who else is going to give you all these stories? Who else is going to give you all these things that you remember as a kid? Like me and Dustin talked about earlier about Atari, about NES, about all the things we grew up with a kid, whether it's be comics, whether it be toys, whether it be whatever. Like, it could be anything we talk about. Me and Manu talked about things I haven't thought about since I was a kid. So like, those are the things that we need to talk about. Run me through more interviews, long form, hour or longer, Dustin's life story, more Sticky Goose and more Mrs. Goose, MJ Comics, Brian and the crew from Beyond Wednesdays, more Swaggle, get Manu. I want to know his life story. Trust me, you're going to get Manu's life story next weekend. I've already talked to Brian over at Beyond Wednesdays. We're going to do something. It's just about scheduling something. Dustin has been on already. We talked about his life story. So make sure you go back and listen to that podcast. I've had Sticky gone. It's been 2 episodes, and the last one is one of the more popular episodes that I've done here on the podcast. So shout out to Sticky. Always a polarizing figure, but the best part of this, and I got to be honest with you, is people willing to be vulnerable, right? If you're willing to be vulnerable in our community, that's what this is about. And for whether you hate Sticky Goose, whether you like Sticky Goose, whether you whatever, if you're willing to be vulnerable, you're willing to talk about your life, and you're willing to talk about the things you've been through, that's what this is about. That's what this podcast is about. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's nostalgic, like, everybody has a story, right? I have a story. You have a story, whether you have a YouTube channel or not, whether you don't, whether you're Instagrammer, whether you're not. If you don't have a channel and you want to come on the podcast and talk about something you've been through, contact me. Contact me. I love hearing stuff, and I love talking about things, and I love helping people through things, because everybody can relate to something, right? I can relate to something you've been through. You can relate to something that I've been through. That's how this world works. How this community works. People talk about no community. I think that's the biggest horse shit I've ever heard in my life. This community is strong, man. I got to be honest with you. It's really strong. I have so many friends. As long as you're not a fucking asshole and you don't fucking whatever, like, I'm friends with people who are the kindest people in the world. I'm friends with people who have taken shots at other people. It's just like, whether you can relate or not. And that's what the problem with this world is right now, is that nobody can relate to somebody else without losing their minds. But that's for another topic. But I agree. We're going to have a lot of people out here on the contest, on the podcast. I've reached out to numerous people. Like, I don't want to spoil things, but keep it thorough. Gem and Collectibles, Vertigo Comics. I've reached out to those people, and a few have agreed to come on. And not the topics you'd be surprised that we're going to talk about. So one person I might have on, you might have like, why would we be talking about this topic? It's because there are little backstories that you need to hear about. And that's what makes them fun to listen to. And that's why I want to have them on. The cover prices in the house. What is going on, guys? Clapping hands. I appreciate you. And again, another great platform that you guys should be listening to. So make sure you're following them as well. And again, I just gave it here. I'm ready to work in this community. I'm ready to do things at the end of the year. Going to take a full-time role here, not just YouTube, but in the collecting space. That's my goal anyway. Manu says, you're making me emotional, man. Thank you for everything. You inspire me. Likewise, my friend. One shot in life. Yeah, one shot. You know what? I shouldn't say that. You got multiple shots. Keep knock it away. The one thing I tell my kids is that, you know what? You're going to fail a million times, because that's what was told to me by my father. You're going to fail a million times in this world. If you get the fuck back up, you're going to keep pursuing what you want to pursue. Whether you want to do something or not, you got to get back up. You got to do it, and you got to pursue something that you want to do. So that's what this podcast is about. I'm not going to lie to you guys. The journey is the destination, so enjoy the day to ride. Derek Strome says, this channel is entertaining. Keep up the good work. It'll pay off. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Cover price. The community is fantastic. 100%. There are some amazing people in this community. I will say this, okay? Don't get caught up in all the shit, right? A lot of people get caught up in money. A lot of people get caught up in price fluctuation. They get caught up in what other people say about certain books. They get caught up on what other people say about collecting certain things. To do what makes you happy, man. This is not what I really wanted to talk about tonight, but do what makes you happy. Like, like not everything's about money. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? Like, we all want to obviously make money on the collectibles. We want to make money on things that we love, but in honesty, comics and collectibles are not where you should be putting your money in order to make money. There's far better investments to be made outside of collecting. You know, me and Dustin talked about Pokemon. That's a entirely different thing right now. It's insane the way it's going, but everything's a bubble. So the last thing I want to say to you guys before I let you go is thank you. Like, there's been incredibly generous people here tonight, including Patel, bunch of other people who did some super chats, which enabled me to give away this great giveaway today. And we're going to do more of these live streams because it seems like a lot of people like listening to this stuff. So I don't always have the time to do a live stream, but I do enjoy doing them. And I thank Dustin again for joining me today and everybody who joined me in the chat tonight. So kudos to you guys. You guys are what make this community fun doing these things. So shout out to all of you guys and gals. So I want to end this thing by saying thank you as always. Make sure you're checking out all the videos I put out there, especially if you're a Masters Universe fan, because we put out a lot of Masters Universe content as well as comic book content. And of course, make sure you're watching the podcast, or listening, I should say, always available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Podbean. Excuse me. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching. Happy collecting. And I will talk to you guys